members? So we'd like to call the meeting to order for the Friday, July the 19th board meeting.
Okay. Dr. Pinther?
Here.
Dr. Blasco's excused. Dr. Champagne?
Here.
Dr. Pisani?
Here.
Dr. Sanders?
Here.
Dr. Moore?
Here.
Dr. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Pate's excused. Mrs. Bethea?
Here.
Ms. Shadler?
Here.
And Ms. Chofie?
Here.
You have a quorum. You can if you want.
All right, we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance now. All right.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We all try to stay in sync.
Never works. Yeah. Alrighty, so we're gonna start off with we already did the form. So we're gonna start off with the public comment. Do we have any public members up north?
Yes, we do. We have one.
Okay, if you could come to the microphone, introduce yourself.
Oh, my name is Jennifer Hamilton.
And where are you from, Jennifer?
I represent Smiley Store.
Thank you.
Yes.
No comment. Thank you. That's all.
All right, so we're gonna come down. We'll start with you, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Owen Trent, here to represent myself pertaining to my application for my moderate sedation permit in Nevada. And I'm here to kind of help answering any questions you might have during my applications and help expedite the board approval of my application.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Wassoff, and I'm here today to humbly request licensure in the state of Nevada and to ask for acceptance of a stipulation agreement. That's it.
Thank you.
Dr. Robert Talley, Executive Director, Nevada Dental Association.
Thank you.
Dr. Antina Capurro, State Dental Health Officer with the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. I'm here to answer any questions regarding the advisory opinion request that's been submitted.
Thank you.
Beth Chartier, Interim State Public Health Dental Hygienist, and I'm here with Dr. Capurro to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do you guys have any public comment? No? Okay. So we're going to go move on to the Executive Director's Report.
Under minutes, we have 3 board meetings that I'm requesting approval for the draft minutes for May 10th. The formal hearing that was held on June 14th, and also the telephone conference board meeting on June 20th. And if you have any corrections, something that didn't get added that you feel is beneficial to the public, you can let me know now. Otherwise, I request the board approve the minutes.
Do we have a motion?
We'll do all three at one time. I make a motion to approve the 3 sets of minutes presented.
Second, Moore.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We're going to move down to financials, NRS 631.180/NRS 631.190. Review the balance sheet and statement of revenues, expenses, and balances for the period July 1st, 2018 to May 31st, 2019.
They did. They got them through the email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay, good. There'll be a test.
You did. Good for you. We just, mine and Melanie, we didn't have to. I seen them, but.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just a quick little numbers that I want to go over with you. We currently have active dentists, 1,925. Active hygienist, 1,465. I do want to note, though, that those numbers seem lower than the last time I gave you numbers, but there are 314 that have been suspended, and so more than likely those numbers are going to come back up. And we have inactive 251 dentist, inactive 243 hygienist, and then non-renewal dentists are 737, and non-renewal hygienists are 777. So just to give you a little bit of that information. So on the reports, these are through May 31st. We are currently working on closing out our year, our June 30th year end. So obviously these numbers are going to change again the next time we meet. However, I did want to just go over a couple things, because the budget versus actual is obviously, there are some things that, some funds that weren't expended. There was some additional income that we didn't budget for that makes that difference. And so I just wanted to go over that real quickly. In our total income, we are over our budget of $65,000, which means that we had some additional funds come in through licensing, through permits, and applications. The items that we've talked about before are still the same items from previous, where we did not expend the funds. The licensing software, that's still not complete. Even though we had budgeted for it, the company still has not completed it, so we did not expend the $7,500 that we anticipated spending up to this point. We had a repairs and maintenance budget of $6,000. We are anticipating painting offices, repairing some things in the offices here, and kind of, updating it a little bit. Those funds were not expended because in anticipation of maybe needing to move the offices instead. So we didn't feel like we wanted to put that money in here, and instead put that money to some moving expenses. Under our employee wages and benefits, we had budgeted for a legal assistant, and that assistant was not hired, and that was in anticipation of really need to look at hiring a different position instead. So we didn't want to go ahead. We haven't done that yet, and so those are $34,000, $50,000 that we did not expend that we had budgeted for. The anesthesia evaluating committee, those expenses came in considerably less, and Deb can actually explain that a little bit better to you than I can, because of some changes in the way that permits were done.
Yeah, so last year in May, so starting for this fiscal year, we added the addition of a pediatric moderate sedation permit. So general dentists who held a moderate sedation permit were given the ability to be grandfathered in to receive a pediatric moderate sedation permit. And so some of those elect to do that, and with that came, they had to get a pediatric site permit. So that increased the amount of permits, and so now through the renewal, we're going to see an increase. So that's why you're seeing that that the income is higher. It's based upon that regulatory change.
Okay. One of the other areas that is a little bit larger difference between actual and budget are the investigations and complaints. And I'm going to also have Deb explain to you why there is that difference there. And then I'll answer anybody's questions about anything on the reports when she finishes with that.
Right now we have we have like a two-phase. So we have the original complaint when it gets noticed, and then once the licensee files a response, then it's assigned to the investigator. So right now I have about 40 complaints that are in that phase where they've been noticed and I'm waiting for the response. Then there's 80 investigations that are in the next phase that are just currently under investigation. So with that amount, we're backlogged on some of these complaints. So that's why you're seeing, we budgeted because the cases, and due to some litigation, they're taking much longer. So these numbers would have reflected some kind of finalization on those cases. And since they haven't been, that the expenses haven't been spent. Or we haven't incurred the expenses that we thought we would incur by finalizing those. So that's why you see the difference in what was budgeted and what we actually have spent.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go on to item C, authorized investigative complaints, NRS 631.360. Start off with number 1. Dr. X, the board office received information that Dr. X may possibly be using vials noted as single patient use for multiple patients, which would be deemed as a violation under CDC guidelines and NAC 631.178.
So I'm requesting that the board authorize an investigative complaint to look into whether this licensee is actually using single patient use vials on multiple patients.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Bender.
Second, Sanders.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Number 2, Dr. Y. The board office received information that Dr. Y may be possibly treating patients outside the scope of dental practice, which would be deemed a violation of NRS 631.215.
There again, the board has received documentation that, and a question, depending, whether this Dr. Y is practicing outside the scope of dentistry in treating patients.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Basani.
Second?
Bender.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Number 3, Dr. Z. The board office received information that Dr. Z may not be conducting a review of patients' utilization reports through the PMP database prior to issuing controlled substances to his or her patients, which would be deemed a violation of the NRS 639 and NRS 631.
Yeah, so our office received information from the pharmacy board that this practitioner may not be conducting the required patient utilization reports prior to issuing controlled substances.
Do we have a motion?
More.
So moved, Basani.
Second?
More.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Item D, American Association of Dental Boards, AADB. Board members to approve the executive director and general counsel for membership for the AADB meeting.
So for the new members, the AADB is the American Association of Dental Boards. So it's an association where they hold 2 meetings a year, and you go, and it's other board members who serve on dental regulatory boards. So it gives you the ability to discuss what's going on in their states, things changing in dentistry, and all of that. So we budgeted for 7 board members, the executive director and the general counsel. So, and that would be for this fiscal year. And so the one meeting is here in October in Las Vegas, and then the next meeting usually is held in March or April, and that's always in Chicago. So you would you would be the members to attend those meetings. So anyone who's interested, if you would.
So can we
So-
vote for ourselves?
Yeah.
So if you look on their website, if you look at the American Association of Dental Board website, the agenda is already there, and what they're speaking about is already on the list. So you can see exactly who the speakers are, what the classes are, and things of that sort. So we're gonna start with, Ms. Pate did express that she wanted to attend that. Up north, we're gonna start with you guys. Ms. Sadler?
Okay.
Dr. Pinther?
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Pisani?
Are you talking about the October meeting? I won't be available.
Yes. And Dr. Champagne?
I will be available.
This is membership, not the meeting.
This is,
This is for the membership. only.
Dr.
I'm sorry.
This is only for the membership. But if you don't think you can attend one of the meetings, then I probably wouldn't want to be a member at this point, to give the ability for somebody who wants to go, who can attend.
Okay. So Dr. Champagne?
Sorry, is there, why not, is it that expensive that all the board members can't just go or be a
Or
member?
sign up at least.
What's
What's the
why
membership
are
fee?
we?
Is it like a huge fee?
Well, there's an agency fee, and that last time was over 5,000. And for,
The agency is for the state though, right?
that's for
Whether you
us.
have- Yeah, whether
And then
you
each-
have 1 or 5 or 7.
well, no, there's an
And then there's
agency fee,
separate.
and then there's an
Individual fee.
Yeah.
on top of that.
The agency fee you're gonna pay no matter if there's 3 or 7 or 10, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that washes. So-
And then you have, so the fee is $350, and then for the meetings, it was $435. I don't know what the cost will be. I'll have to check when we register. So then it's $435 as the registration fee to attend the meeting. And then this time, obviously, there's not travel because it's here, but like the travel too.
Sure.
We do use, the AADB has a records check component to it that we use as part of the licensure process. So being a member of it as an organization is important for how we have structured credentialing for licensure.
Yeah, and that, I think that solidifies what I'd like to say is that all the members should have access to it. I don't understand why we're not budgeted to have everybody that's a member have the ability to go.
Okay.
Because that's fine. It's just in the past, we were sending people going and.
I know,
Right.
it might show favoritism, it might not, it might, I don't know. Maybe nobody is
Well,
interested in going and
Let's,
there's only 3
why
people, but.
don't we see who's interested, and if there's more than 7, then we can.
Well, we can make it for everybody. We can approve everybody.
Yeah.
I'll pay for everybody, and then we'll just budget for everybody.
That
Why
would
don't
be.
we just approve everybody and then ask who wants to go and then you can say, okay.
Yeah.
But I have to pay for your fee, I have to pay for you to be a member.
No, we'll
So if you
approve
do,
everybody.
Right.
And then afterwards you can ask who's gonna go, then you can pay.
So
But
just-
we're just asking for approval.
So just
Okay.
real quick, on the agenda right now, you have to only approve 7 board members. So 7 can be done today, and then when we have the next meeting, you can approve the rest of the board members.
okay.
So it doesn't, I mean, I don't know if it matters
So
which
who are the
random
7? I don't get that part.
Well, that's what we're trying to determine right now, who's
Why only
interested.
7 though, that's what I'm saying.
Because that's what was budgeted.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what we have in the budget.
Oh,
We
you know, you
I
can,
see.
we
So
know you
you
can
got
go.
budget.
No, they have a whole
Yeah, I
committee
didn't
for
understand
public
why it was
members.
7.
No, you can participate.
So can we just table that until next meeting then?
Well,
Yeah, we
we
can.
don't have to pay before next meeting?
Do we have a
Approve the 7 and then put the rest on next meeting?
Because next meeting
Well,
is September.
Don't
the
we have to
meeting's in
change,
October.
we have to
Do we have a meeting in August?
Well,
request the budget, right?
I think at this point, you've indicated that you want everybody to be
go.
able to.
Yes.
So I just think tabling it, bringing it back and approving it that way, and then I'll budget for everybody, and this way I want to get the payment to them, though I don't want to wait till the last minute, so then if we end up only doing 7, then they'll owe me the money back.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so we're gonna table item
Table
D altogether, 1 and 2, correct?
yep.
All right, we're gonna go to item E, office lease, NRS 631.190, approval rejection to move the board office to a larger office space upon the expiration of the current office lease, which expires in,
April 30th of next year. So due to the fact of the growth in Nevada and contractors being behind and having to find a location, and if there had to be build-outs done and then the actual moving, I wanted to get ahead of this. So we definitely have run out of space here with the budget that will be coming forward. There will be additional staff added for multiple reasons. So I'm just requesting that the board approve that we can move the office so that I can go forward with finding another location.
do we have a motion?
So move, Sanders.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We're gonna go down to the general counsel's report. Legal actions and lawsuits update.
So the only civil action still pending is the Abbey Dental matter. The plaintiffs have filed an appeal, so it's partially on appeal, but there are still motions pending in district court, and our counsel and their counsel are working out the mediation issues that we discussed at the last meeting, but there's nothing further has happened since our last meeting, and so that's that. Yes.
I was at a mediation not that long ago in a Med-Mal case, and I understand that Joe Bon Jovi has retired.
That we found that out as well. Yes. Yes.
So I know that when it's done, because good mediators are good to.
Yes, they are. They are. So I know that our counsel is working on that. Okay, so we're going to.
Okay, so we're gonna go on to B, to consideration of stipulation agreements, NRS 622 on Dr. Richard Racanelli.
So Dr. Racanelli received a complaint, and the complaint was investigated, and Dr. Racanelli cooperated in that investigation. The matter went before our DSO and our review panel, and a stipulation was agreed upon by the DSO, the review panel, and Dr. Racanelli. That stipulation is in your materials, and it is a non-disciplinary corrective action stipulation. The issues involved had to do with NRS 6312715, which is private tutoring in the office without licensure, and then there were some veneer and occlusion issues found. So at this time, Dr. Racanelli has requested that the board review and accept this stipulation agreement.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Asani.
Second?
Second.
And just to be clear, anyone who's on that review panel needs to recuse.
What's that?
So
Up north, was anybody on the review panel up north on this case?
No, it was
No.
Okay.
you
Oh.
It was the two of us.
Yes.
It was Sanders and Yvonne.
Right, so we're gonna abstain when it comes.
Actually, so let's turn, so Sanders is the other officer, right?
correct.
Okay, so let's turn the meeting over to someone else.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, if you could just pick someone to run the meeting since you and Sanders need to recuse.
Dr. Lee?
Some are born to greatness, others have a twist of mind.
So all you're doing basically is taking the vote whether the board members approve the stipulation or not.
So, do we approve the stipulation for Dr. Ratcanelli.
And I apologize, I think Dr. Kasani already made a motion.
Zani motion and
And the Panther second.
Yeah, Zani and Panther.
So if there's any discussion, all you're doing is finishing the vote.
Do we have any yeses?
No discussion.
Any discussion?
Any discussion?
I have a question, maybe it's not the appropriate time, but the first problem was tutorage?
Yeah, he
What?
had another doctor from out of state come in and give him, forget what he called it.
I mean, as long, if that doctor from out of state doesn't treat a patient, then what's the difference between that and a lecturer coming in and giving a lecture?
Well, it was a personal course with the actual patient, and the doctor was giving diagnosis and instruction and things like that on the actual patient. And so the,
But isn't that
well,
similar to a
diagnosis is
study
practicing.
club?
If you're licensed.
If you're licensed, they're.
You can have a study club, but your study club usually contains people within your community that are licensed in the state. This gentleman was not licensed in the state. So under NRS 631.2715, in order to do any kind of post-secondary continuing education on a live patient, it has to be at a facility for the sole purpose of post-secondary. You can't bring somebody into your office.
I guess my confusion is if let's say that this doctor, let's say Dr. X, who is licensed here,
Right.
is asked to consult on a case from Dr. Z in Chicago. I know it's not Nevada, but you'll get my drift. Are you saying that for the state of Nevada, that an out-of-state doctor can't look at a patient here and have a consult or a diagnosis? Because that's problematic, because, for instance, when you send out an X-ray for radiologist, then that infers that the radiologist has to have a license here in the state, and we can't send out the film to a radiologist.
No,
that's a
no,
different
'cause
situation.
we don't regulate radiologists.
And to be clear,
But
radiology
it's
just needs to be
diagnosis.
licensed in
Right.
the state, yeah.
No, I'm saying if you send out for a consultation, like there's several services that do that, that'll read CBCTs and so on and so forth. There's diagnostics for implants, there's all kinds of things that are done not in the state that are part of the treatment plan of a patient. And so I'm confused as to how that can be acceptable, quotes, and yet now that we have a doctor that's physically here consulting on a patient, that's not acceptable.
Okay.
I'm confused.
Okay, so
This is
first off,
The way I read it, it's really pretty simple. This guy's not licensed in the state. He comes into a private office. They're treating the patient for treatment fees, and he's actually working on the patient. Whether he's diagnosing it or treating it, I think he was actually doing the patient.
So that was my original question. Thanks, Dr. Pisani. If he's touching the patient, whole different scenario.
Absolutely.
I read it as he was only consulting.
Well,
okay,
he was-
but
it was-
if he evaluates or diagnosis, professes to evaluate or diagnose, so professes to diagnose, so that consultation, if he diagnoses that patient, that is considered the practice of dentistry in Nevada, and you have to have a license.
Well, then that's going to be, then I would like to make a motion that we need to address outside services that are being done, because there's a plethora of them.
That means be another agenda.
But wait a minute, right, but when you send an X-ray out to somebody,
That's diagnosing.
but you said they're radiologists, they take the cone beam and they're reading it. They're licensed to do that.
Yes, but in other states.
But if the patient agrees that you're sending that to that person and they're licensed in that state, they're not practicing dentistry here. Now, the question would be, if they're diagnosing your patient, could they be violating some law in whatever state they're in?
So our current statute, and this is a statute, not a reg, so it's from the legislature, states that you have to have a limited license to supervise courses of continuing education involving live patients. It can be a limited license. You can come in, you're not coming in and giving a didactic lecture, you're coming in and you're advising on a live patient. And our statute requires that you have a limited license to do that. He was in the office, whether it was actual hands-on or it's over the shoulder or however it is done, he was consulting and giving education on a live patient, and our statutes require that he have a limited license to do that.
And that it be at a post-secondary facility for the sole purpose.
Right.
So you can't have it going on in your office.
So the difference is when you're working on a live patient, we have additional rules.
So is there such a thing as a limited license?
Yes.
Yes, we've approved a few of them.
Yes. So, yeah, so you can come into the state and give a live lecture using using live patients. You just have to let us know you're here, get your limited license, we need to make sure you have the credentials, and it has to be done at the proper facility.
Right, and that facility has to be registered with the board. So like we have LVI, for instance. That's how this statute came about. It was through LVI.
Is there a specific set of paperwork that we have for those types of institutions?
Yep, it's on our website, yep.
Thank you, Dr. Pisani, appreciate the input.
You're welcome.
Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Ms.
Sanders?
Bethea?
I think I abstained too, actually.
You have to have a legal reason to abstain. And put it on.
So my reason for abstaining kind of has to do with the audit, right? And so reading the audit, I think they had a problem with our whole investigation problem, right? And the audit came out, they're looking at the date before our meeting today. And so I feel a little uncomfortable voting on that.
So are you abstaining or you're opposing?
Abstaining.
Okay, so if you're abstaining, you just ran the meeting, so now we have to do it again.
So now it goes back to, no, or no?
Dr. Moore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Actually, let's move it up north.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, because I'm the auditor's reports, the oversight investigation, that sort of thing, I'd like to abstain also.
Can we table it
I'm perfectly fine with that.
until we figure out what we want to do legally? Ms. Sophia?
I'm not sure what you mean legally.
Can we just table it right now because he doesn't want to run it, and then up north? So can we just table it for a minute?
Hang on.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry. We have on the agenda for new business that the audit is going to be reviewed. So can we maybe move that up so that we get a better sense of where we are in our either oppositions or comments about the audit? Because I guess I had more so for the next thing that we were going to vote on, and I just had a question that these things fall into that time frame that is being questioned in the audit. So should we discuss the audit before we do any voting on?
I mean, if you want to take this out of order, you can move to do that.
I really don't want to take it out of order because we have the public members here that came.
part of it, though. It's
Mhm.
important for them
Well, it doesn't,
to,
that's,
I would agree with that, I'll go for that.
To do what?
let's
Go out
table
of
it for
order.
now,
Okay.
and we can come back to it after we discuss the other item, can't we? Can we table it
Yeah.
till later in the
Yeah.
meeting?
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to table that till later in the meeting.
Okay.
All right. Let's go down to item C. Pursuant to the terms of disciplinary stipulation the second Stimulation 2 agreement, respondent hereby requests the board to reinstate her suspended dental license. Respondent's dental license is suspended for non-compliance with the terms and conditions of the stipulated agreement approved by the board on October the 4th, 2014.
So,
And let me just say one thing. I have to turn this over because, yeah.
because,
Why? Wasn't.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they did. I don't know if we reviewed this or not.
well, let me just say this.
Go ahead.
The issue, you haven't reviewed this issue. So you haven't reviewed this issue.
Okay.
Now, that having been said, the reason it's on today's agenda is because when this suspension was first noticed, Dr. Chase did have an attorney notice her representation. And at the time that she noticed her representation, she requested that this issue be put on the July meeting, which is why it's on our agenda. However, in the interim, that attorney has withdrawn from her representation, and we've not heard from Dr. Chase herself, and nobody else has made another, has noticed their representation. So at this point, it was on the agenda because that was the last request I had received, but I don't believe Dr. Chase is here unless she has walked in since the meeting started up north.
No.
Okay, so I would suggest that we table this. I don't think any decisions should be made without Dr. Chase being here. So we will continue to try and get in contact with Dr. Chase to see what she wants to do in this regard. So.
Okay, so I'll agree to table it then. We're gonna move to item D, consideration of application for dental licensure pursuant to NRS 631.240. And we do have present Dr. Michael Wassa.
And we're doing DNA together, right?
Yes, yes.
And then we're also gonna do the next one, E, consideration of stipulation agreement contingent upon the issuance of a license to practice dentistry in the state of Nevada.
Okay, so Dr. Wassef is here with us today, so if you want to take a seat over there. Yes. And you have received a great deal of information in your materials. The last part of the booklet concerning Dr. Wassef is the proposed stipulation agreement, which we can talk about in more detail in a moment. Dr. Wassef is applying for licensure. He was previously licensed in Arizona, and as you can see from his application, there were some issues in Arizona that he has been very forthcoming with us concerning, and he's seeking licensure from this board with the understanding that he might have to do some additional supervision or monitoring or whatnot per this stipulation. So I want to turn it over to the board to ask any questions of Dr. Wassef, and if you have any statement that you'd like to make, you can do that.
Excuse me, sure. My name is Mike Wassef. I'm a dentist, and as Ms. Chapman just said, I had been practicing dentistry in the state of Arizona for quite some time, about 18 years. And actually before that, 10 years in New Jersey, where I'm from originally. And to make a long story short, we had some issues come up in Arizona, and they were challenged legally, and in my opinion, and based on what the factual information that was given, there was a lot of things that had happened to me that didn't seem to be that straightforward and that fair. and I shared all the evidence with the administrative team and Ms. Chapman here at the board. And basically, I came to meet Ms. Kugel a few months ago, and I basically came and I explained to her my story. And I basically asked, I said, I miss my profession, and is there any recommendations? And the stipulation agreement came up, and I am more than willing to enter into the stipulation agreement, which then I spoke to Ms. Chapman about to address the concerns, any concerns of public safety that the board may be considerate of. So we entered, or at least proposed, a stipulation agreement that Ms. Chapman and I seem to have covered all the bases in terms of public safety and concern, and it would also give me an opportunity to regain my profession and to re-enter the profession that I love so dearly. And that's where we're at right now. And I'm humbly requesting that you grant me the privilege and the honor to practice dentistry again based on the stipulation agreement that myself and Ms. Chapman had worked out.
And I want to state that, as I've explained to Dr. Wasif, I can't agree to this stipulation. This is something that the board has to agree to. This is something that the board has the sole authority to determine whether or not it is sufficient, if anything additional needs to be placed in it, if anything, but that I was able to help him make this proposal to the board. And that's how this came about. It has not been signed by anyone, although Dr. Wasef has requested that it be presented to you. As you will see, there are some blanks left in the stipulation because it would be up to the board whether or not to impose a probationary period versus a monitoring period or something of that nature. Given the what happened in Arizona, under other stipulations of this nature, the board has indicated that probationary periods would be appropriate. In this particular case, I think that there were some irregularities in Arizona. I'm not here to make any determinations about what they did or didn't do, but I do feel that there were some irregularities. I don't know that this board would have revoked the license under the same circumstances. Again, I don't know, but and therefore I did want to leave it to the board to consider a monitoring period as opposed to a probationary period, and that's why those blanks are in there.
Can you go over the irregularities?
There are many. You got a whole CD full of information. Basically, there was an order of revocation that was taken to a hearing officer. And please correct me if I get any of the facts incorrect. The hearing officer came back and said that order of revocation was improper and should not have taken place. And that order was taken back to the Arizona board. The Arizona board changed the hearing officer's findings of facts, changed his conclusions of law, and upheld the revocation. So
They actually changed the case number.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yes,
I don't know. I don't know if in Arizona that is allowed. I don't know. I don't keep. I don't know their statutes. But here I don't think that the board.
Can I make a comment,
yes,
please? One of the pleasures I have, as many of those that preceded me, is reviewing all applications for licensure. I have read this. I've read every bit of it. It makes no sense. seems absurdly vindictive, to be quite honest. And the individual who's probably the most causative in this happening is no longer with the board.
Of Arizona.
Yeah, of Arizona. So as I went over this stuff, it is very clear to me that I would rather give him an opportunity to start here with guidance and supervision and give him a chance that I don't think was fairly done for him in Arizona. And there's several pieces. Feel free to read it and comment at some point, but it makes a very interesting read. I've never seen someone treated like this in dentistry. It's just absurd. So my personal input to it is I think he is deserving of consideration for a license here in Nevada with the stipulation agreement giving him a monitoring period as we go forward.
Can I just say one thing? I mean, I don't know him and no offense, but you know, it's always one-sided, right? And I'm sure at the time when they were giving him the whatever they did to him, they had their reasons, right? Much like what we do, right? And when somebody goes to a different state, right, and states their case only one-sided, right, then we can always say the other side was incorrect or biased.
And I absolutely appreciate
so
that.
looking at it, it's only simply one-sided.
Well, that's why we want to do the stipulation for the licensure. So we're not making a call that Arizona, you were wrong. We're not saying that. We're saying that based on the information that we have, which includes all of the Arizona orders, it includes all of the testimony from the hearings that took place. So we do have two sides.
You approve it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Arizona looks at it and says, we took his license away and just gave him a license.
Well, we're giving him a license under a stipulation that he needs to adhere to. And you're certainly entitled to your personal vote on this. No one is trying to come here to tell you that you have to vote one way or the other.
I mean, it's just like if a licensee, we revoke their license here, they go to California and they get the license.
It's happened. It happens all the time. Yeah.
And it just, you know.
So, but
you know how you feel about that. Then,
well,
right?
but we don't. It's that other state's issue now, and if they want
Right,
to give
but
the
what I'm
license,
saying
right?
is because when they went to the other state, then they gave a one-sided case.
Agreed. But what I'm saying is we're not ignoring Arizona's decision, and that's the purpose of this stipulation, is to acknowledge it, to understand it, to have reviewed it, and to acknowledge the issues which led to that revocation, and to keep Dr. Wassef under a monitoring period.
That's Dr. Wassef.
Sure.
So the person who was like so vindictive towards you is no longer there, right?
Yes.
Did you attempt to get licensure in Arizona now?
No, when they revoked my license, it was my understanding that I have a 5-year window before I can reapply again, since it was revoked. And I think the issue, Doctor, you brought up an excellent point, actually. I mean, you really did. In my case, you know, as Dr. Sanders too just mentioned, that this is a very, very strange case. I don't know how it became what it did. In 2014, they suspended my license. We went to the administrative law judge. We had a 2-day hearing at the administrative law judge in Phoenix. They called witnesses, and they produced their evidence. And basically, I defended myself in the Office of Administrative Hearing, and the judge ruled against them that there was absolutely no evidence for their suspension, no actual factual basis for their suspension. So the judge rendered his decision in July of 2014. When the judge rendered his decision in 2014, the executive director with the board, with the help of the Attorney General's office in Arizona, they took the verbiage of the judge and they actually changed the entire meaning of his decision, which was extremely shocking to me that this was even acceptable that this was even possible. So as a small example, the judge, for example, questioned the credibility and the reliability of the former executive director on the record on multiple occasions. They took out, when he made in his decision, and he said that that she was not credible, they took his decision and they crossed out the word "not," and they rendered that as the public document. Okay, so the judge said she's not a credible witness. They took it, removed the word "not." He said the state has not shown by a preponderance of the evidence. They took out the word "not." So basically what they did was they took his decision and they, for lack of a better term, with all due respect, they molested his decision and they turned it against me when it was actually for me. And that was just the beginning. And I had tried and tried and tried to propose settlements to try to get my license back. And that simply didn't happen. She just didn't want it to happen regardless. And there was a ton of other things that happened that I don't know if I should really get into it here. In summation, I just think, Ms. Chapman reviewed the records, Dr. Sanders reviewed the records. I think Ms. Kugel reviewed, I don't know if you reviewed all of them, but, if you can give what maybe you
Did
think.
we ask the Nevada board for an opinion by any chance, or to get a?
Which Nevada board?
I mean, the Arizona board, their opinion?
Their opinion is that his license was revoked. I mean, that's their opinion.
So they know the case better, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
And then
no.
versus us getting, just a one-sided.
But what I'm telling you is we don't have just one side. I have the transcripts. They were given to you on that CD. You had access to the transcripts,
Right.
which we have access to all of their orders, which are detailed. We have access to many of the correspondence between Dr. Wasif and the Arizona board. And I know it was a lot of material, but I can't, that's why, we gave it to you to review.
3 days ago.
Yeah, well, but we gave it to you to review, and I, if I'm not making any comment on whether or not you did review it, but I'm just stating that it's
And
not
I-
a one-sided.
To be honest with you, I looked at it, right? But it's impossible to,
Right, and I understand
To
that.
make heads or tails out of it?
And that's part of the
That's part of the
problem.
problem.
It's
If you look-
That's what I'm saying.
Right, if you
to
look
say
at
the
all the
least.
historically, I've been doing this, I could not understand half of what they were saying because a case number kept changing. You were case number this, then you this, then it was 8 cases, and I'm like, but it's the same issue.
It's the same issue, yes.
If at the end of the day, they believed that him prescribing or having some kind of issue, my first question to him was, did they take your DEA number? Did they ask you to relinquish it? No, he had his DEA number the entire time. So if you're worried about protecting the public, that would have been the first thing you would have said. Well, we can do an order of summary suspension and suspend your license, and we're pulling that DEA, or you can voluntarily relinquish it while we investigate this.
Right.
That's historically how we would have done it here. That immediately protects the public. That never happened. So if it was so egregious, why wasn't that the first thing they did?
And also, may I add to that? They actually did call the DEA on me. The DEA did come to my house, and the DEA did do an investigation on me, and they didn't do anything because I didn't do anything wrong. And there was no sanction, there was nothing. So Dr. Lee, I know it must be hard for you to go through that. I mean, it's hard for me, and I'm the one that lived through it, to even try to explain it, but I did the best job I could because, when you apply for a license, you have to disclose everything. So that's what I did. But I can assure you, I'm a decent man, and I like my profession, and I like my patients, and I would appreciate given a chance to be able to give a chance.
To all of the board, you have had a discussion from our council, from our executive director, and from our secretary. They've reviewed this way more than we have. Dr. Lee, it's a matter of trust. If you don't trust their opinions on what they read and their discussion with this licensee or potential licensee, then basically you have the right to vote no. But if you're going to argue right now, it makes no sense. He's sitting here, and I think that we need to get to the vote. If the council says that the stipulation, we need to verify it and fill in the blanks. But if that's okay with her, you have to trust her. We've hired her, she's licensed, and she's our legal counsel. If Dr. Sanders, with all of his experience, thinks that this case looked bad to him, it looked bad to him. So don't think you're missing out on something. This is what's happening right now. I think we need to move on.
Well, you know, I do have the right to question, right? And it's not a blanket trust. I can say whatever I want. I have as much power as you do in sitting on the board. So you can't tell me to be quiet, and you talk all you want.
I'm not saying
yes, you are.
Dr. Lee. I'm saying yield
I could question
to who have the most experience. Yield to who has the experience in this particular matter.
I'd also like to point out that in the materials that you've received, and this is something unusual that I haven't seen. I'm not usually this involved with a licensure application, but we received 6 letters of recommendation for Dr. Wasif. They're in your materials. Some are from Arizona, some are from right here in Nevada. And so that also, you know, beyond me, beyond Dr. Sanders, beyond Deb, these are people that know Dr. Wasif and have vouched for him on his behalf. So to the extent that that informs your decision at all, I would ask you to look at those letters. And then I believe you had a question.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts are that we can't change what happened with Arizona. Are there questions that maybe board members have about the stipulations that may be making them uncomfortable? I'm comfortable that the people in this room that determined this is what we need to see going forward because you are entitled to have a license and it will be under these conditions. If there's something maybe that's not thorough enough about that maybe you're uncomfortable with, but I don't know, I guess I think that, like you said, you're not handing a license to this professional. You are saying, this is what we're going to be looking for.
And as I explained to Dr. Wasif, as one regulatory board, we owe some deference to another regulatory board. We do owe them the deference to understand that whatever the reasons they found appropriate, this license was revoked, whether we agree with it or not. And so we can't just say, here's your license, and go on and be merry. We have to give some deference to the fact that there was this action in another state. And that's the purpose of proposing this stipulation in which, you know, he will be monitored. He has agreed to many stipulations, you know, and I hope you don't mind my saying this, but Dr. Wasif has voluntarily undergone, I'm not sure if it's weekly or monthly, drug testing since 2014. I have looked at every single one, up until this month. I've looked at every single one of them. There is not one positive result in 5 years. And he, as part of this stipulation, will continue to be subject to random drug testing. So, you know, that is, to me, one of the things that he has agreed to do, with the understanding that this was an issue in Arizona, and you know, after 5 years of monitoring someone in our state, we probably wouldn't continue. So he's had 5 years of monitoring in this respect, in this regard, and he's agreeing to continue for purposes of obtaining his license. So, so that's just one example of one of the things that he's agreed to. You know, he's agreed to additional continuing education. You know, you've got the stipulation. I can go through it if you want, but
may I ask him?
Absolutely.
Dr. Wasser?
Yes, sir.
I actually read all of this too. I have some questions for you.
Sure.
My first question was on the original prescription that was in question that started the investigation. You got a copy of that specific one. Was there a precipitating event that that they basically, because that prescription, as you have stated, from the Walgreens, I believe it was.
Yes.
Is not, it wasn't written to yourself as she accused you?
Exactly. Exactly.
What was the precipitating event that caused them to make that story up?
There was, in our group, we have a few dentists in our group. I had a tooth pulled. It was infected, it cracked. He pulled it. He wrote a script for me. When the dental assistant...
Right, I read that. And he wrote, and it was a legit prescription. Yeah,
right.
I got that. My question is that there was already a grievance or something going on, because the board wouldn't naturally lie about a prescription being written accuse you of something that they don't have proof of.
Well, the script, when the assistant wrote that, it had my name as the patient, and it had my name as the prescriber.
Ah.
She made the error on that. When she went to the computer, Dr. Van did.
Oh.
So when he did that, it was his signature, okay? But it had my name on it. It was a clerical error.
Okay, I didn't see a copy of that in here.
Oh.
It is there, I'm trying to find it. I did see it.
Yeah, I didn't.
Somewhere in there.
It's in the exhibits.
I didn't see it in the exhibits. My second question is that why was the original STI assessment rejected?
Because that wasn't one of the 3 that they put down on their list. They said that you had to go get a...
that were all in California.
Right, there was one in, I think in Texas and one in Tennessee, one in Texas.
But later in your rebuttals of all of the accusations, there's a board approved facility there in Scottsdale, I believe, that they accepted information from. So
I went to the STI in Scottsdale Treatment Institute. It's a treatment facility.
Yeah.
That's where I went to get my assessment within that time frame that they gave me.
Right.
According to the interim board order, they gave me 14 days to comply, but I had to give them 10 days notice. So I only really had 4 days to try to find somewhere. So I went and I was assessed, and they rejected it. They didn't accept it.
Yeah. The board claims that you didn't comply to more than one. I mean, there's a history of non-compliance. Can you help me with that?
Sure. If I may, I think it's not fair for them to say that I wasn't complying when they were actually the ones that were obstructing my compliance. Let me give you a small example. They originally, as one of the original 3, there was a place called Promises, I believe. It's out in California. As it turns out, the addictionologist there that recommended these 3 facilities, he owned it or founded it, which was a few years before that, failed to disclose that to me, okay? I found that out. I called eventually there to make that appointment to go see him. Let me see if I can think of his name. Can't remember his name. He was the director there. So I called to make the appointment. I believe it was to go in on Monday. And he said, fine, and he called me back the next day for like an interview over the phone before I get there. And when he spoke to me, he actually mentioned the former executive director's name, saying, oh, I heard you lost against the board. And I said, I haven't even gotten to you yet. How do you know that? So she has as I've shown by clear evidence that I submitted, she has interfered in every single one of my attempts to comply, and then she says,
I read that, and I can see that certainly looks that way, and probably wouldn't disagree with you. My question is, like, there are several stipulations where you had to do CE, and they claimed that you were non-compliant.
Yes.
What was the issue with
there's
that, for example?
Let me get you, yeah, I'm glad you asked me. Actually, I think it was on April 11th of 2014, that board meeting.
Well, there were some prior to the whole prescription issue. These are earlier stipulations in your history.
There's two things. If you don't mind, if I can just finish what I was saying on there before I forget. On April 11th, when they automatically, I think they called it a summary suspension of my license. That was in 2014, April 11th, 2014. They already had the suspension document printed and distributed to the board members before the case even was heard. So they ordered 6 CEs, I believe, of continuing education on that same day. So the day they suspended my license, they also ordered 6 continuing dental education for, I don't remember what it was, I think it was an implant-related thing. So, needless to say, when my license was suspended, there's no excuse. I totally forgot about that. When the judge granted my stay and my license was temporarily reinstated by the Superior Court judge, about a month after that, I get a notice of non-compliance with a board order from the former executive director saying that I didn't comply with this CE. So I'm like, oh my God. Okay, so I went and I took it. And we went to the board meeting, and my attorney presented the actual completion saying, yeah, he's late, we're sorry, but he did comply, and here it is. Well, that turned into a fiasco, and I think they wanted my license revoked at that point, and they remanded me to OWA, saying that I was unregulatable. But yeah, you asked also about something, about a CE that I might not have taken before. I don't deny that, and it was totally my fault. There's no fault but mine on that, but I can honestly tell you, it wasn't done voluntarily. I didn't do it intentionally. I just forgot, and I didn't comply with that order, and I'm sorry about that, but that's what happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So with that being said, do we have a motion for item D and item E, consideration of the application of dental licensure for Dr. Wasif, and for item E, consideration of the stipulation agreement contingent upon the insurance of the license to practice dentistry in the state of Nevada?
Sorry, just procedurally, regarding item E, I think I heard your counsel state that there's some blanks in item E, so I don't think you can approve item E without filling in those blanks. So if you want to, so if you're inclined to approve item D, you need to fill in the blanks for item E.
Can we,
but you can do the vote separate if you want.
right, I think we should do a separate vote, and
Seems
so.
like we should do E first, then D, no?
No, because D.
E first, then D?
No, D is the
Because we have to
approval of the
agree
license.
We have to agree on the stipulation before we can agree on the document.
Well, you've got to agree on getting a license before you do the stipulation. I think that's the point.
We don't have any jurisdiction to enter into a stipulation with him until he has a license.
Is it acceptable to, on item E, to have further discussion on that as a group?
So I guess right now, I don't know if there's a flavor for giving him his license or not, so
So we're gonna go with item D, consideration of application for dental licensure pursuant to NRS 631.240 for Dr. Wyseth. Do we have a motion for item D?
More, aye.
Second?
Second, John.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, that was a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. So with item E,
So with item E, that would be consideration of the proposed stipulation. As we've briefly discussed, I have, in discussion with Dr. Wasif, left blanks within this stipulation agreement for the board to consider and determine how you want to fill in those blanks with regard to the type of stipulation this will be, whether it will be monitoring, probation, that kind of issue. Obviously, probation carries with it additional issues, reporting requirements and things like that. But that is not a decision that anyone but this board can make.
I'd like to make a motion then that we regroup. What do you say?
we have to table it.
Table it? Is that the right term?
Are you talking about, so you want to decide on the stipulation later today or at a different time entirely? Because if you want to decide at a different time entirely, he's practicing as of now. So it means he has.
Through a temporary license?
No, you just approved a license today.
Yes.
So he has a license.
Yeah.
So he has an unrestricted license right now.
Until he enters into the stip.
Well, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I don't know how many people are prepared to have read and are prepared to complete the stipulation agreement today.
Well, what can we, I do feel it's important that we complete this today. So may I suggest that we take a break? Can we do that?
Can we go back to that and then go on to Dr. Kapora and Captain?
You could table this to be the last agenda item, and then that gives you all the time.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so let's go on to new business. We're gonna review, discuss, and approve. I want to move that down also because that's gonna hold up the people. Okay, let's go to item B, request for advisory opinion regarding the application of silver diamond fluoride by the dental hygienists who hold a public health endorsement, NRS 631.278 and NAC 631.210. Dr. Caporo is here. Do we have any questions for her? Any concerns?
I do. Sorry.
That's fine.
Dr. Kapora?
Yes, Dr. Kapor, come on up. Have a seat right next to Dr. Wassa.
I don't think you have to stay there either.
Okay, let's see.
Where would you like to sit?
Jeff is gonna come over too.
Okay, I'll
Can we
move over.
switch one down?
Price is right. Come on down.
We're gonna win.
Okay.
It's pursuant to that.
You're gonna win a red book. Alrighty, go ahead, Dr. Moore.
With the recommendation that you have before us, are you proposing that there's an additional specific board-approved CE requirement in addition to the instead of just saying, okay, blanket, here you go, and if so, how are you addressing that? Thanks.
So I had asked for the board's opinion because public health endorsed dental hygienists can practice independently, and so the statute seems a little bit unclear as to the verbiage about fluoride preparations and the placement of, temporary restorations with non-permanent materials as a palliative treatment. And so I was asking for clarification on those two areas, whether or not public health endorsed dental hygienists that are working in a public health setting for vulnerable and underserved populations could place silver diamine fluoride to arrest decay, and in cases where there's a large cavitation, could place a interim material. And so what I did provide to the board was the proposed policy from the Nevada Oral Health Program that would outline exactly how that would be placed, what kind of consent forms would be in place, patient surveys, and also a brochure for patients. When I submitted this to the board, I did offer that if the board felt more comfortable with a continuing education course for public health endorsed hygienists before using this medicament, that the Nevada Oral Health Program could put together a course and offer that to those licensees.
I think that's a good idea.
So she's asking for an advisory opinion as to the regulations for dental hygienists. So it says fluoride preparations, so I believe that's a topical fluoride.
Yep.
I will say that this was actually a discussion at one of our AADB meetings, and I think one of the helpful things that the board or you may consider is the informed consent, because I think that what they were seeing was, because I believe that can turn the tooth black.
Exactly.
And so if the parents or of the children or whoever aren't aware of that, and then all of a sudden the tooth turns black, they don't understand why.
Exactly.
So I know that that was discussed, that when, you know, applying this type of fluoride, there probably should be a separate informed consent that spells all that out so that they are aware that that's a condition of using this.
That's a big concern.
Yes.
And so what was included in the packet that you received was a sample informed consent and verbiage that a picture should be included in the informed consent. And there's a picture there. It needs to kind of be blown up a little bit, but it would show the parents what it's going to look like afterwards, because it doesn't turn the tooth black immediately. Over time, it gets darker.
Right.
And so that could be very
scary.
Yes, right.
And we got bigger.
So,
Right, exactly.
so in the actual letter of the law, applying the silver diamine fluoride is permissible by the public health endorsed hygienist. That's already in the law.
Yes.
Correct.
What we're really
Because
talking
it doesn't
about is
specify, it just says,
informed
exactly.
consent for the patient. So you're actually legal in doing it. But the informed consent piece is really what we're concerned about, I think, in looking at it.
Which she
So-
has it right here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which I think is fine.
Right.
And then providing the CE course, I think would be good too.
Yes.
For the glass ionomer.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the temporary, yeah.
And could we identify the temporary filling that it would be put placing?
So it would be an interim restoration. It's called the silver modified atraumatic restorative technique, and it's used in conjunction with silver diamine fluoride when there's a large cavitation, so that the tooth is treated with the SDF. The silver ions would stop the bacterial action while the fluoride is being released to remineralize. But that interim restoration would cover the tooth surface so that the nutrient-rich saliva is not continuing to harm the tooth structure, and you can give the patient time to get to a dentist for the final restoration.
I think what he's asking, correct me if I'm wrong, what is the interim restoration?
It could be
That
anything.
you
It could be
plan.
glass ionomer. It could be. Is that what you're asking? What material?
Correct. Yeah, because
So-
I mean, glass ionomer could be like almost a filling, correct?
Well, it's an interim restoration. It's a temporary. So, and it's placed across the country in relationship with SDF in particular, because it is an interim restoration. And you're basically giving a patient that's maybe in rural Nevada, maybe they don't have access to a dentist, to have that time to get to care. And so it's really a remarkable thing that's being done across the country, so that patients aren't, especially young patients, aren't losing their teeth.
Your CE course, though, like we were discussing, would cover keeping it out of occlusion, that sort of things, I assume, right?
Correct.
So,
Yes.
so that they would understand that they would have to do that and check that and what that means.
And if we did a CE, there would have to be a hands-on
Yeah.
component, so that the public health endorsed hygienist would actually understand
And
the.
can a public health endorsed hygienist practice, is it a geographically restricted license?
It's a special health endorsement, so it's a hygienist who has that type of license
Yep.
can offer dental hygiene services as set forth in the regulation at a program approved by the board. So
Oh,
it's not
has-
so much an area, it's the program
The
itself.
program itself.
The board approves it, and then,
And are any of those programs in, like Clark, yeah,
Oh,
within
yeah.
the city's
Yes.
limits?
I'd like to
Yeah.
bring up Terry.
Terry.
Terry,
She stated it
we're gonna bring up Terry Chandler,
Okay.
public health dental hygienist.
can I just have a question? I just have a question. So under L, it says place a temporary restoration with non-permanent material as a palliative treatment. Is that, because I'm not a dentist, is that what your claim, is that what you're
Yes.
stating, is that what that
Yes,
is?
and that's exactly why you're placing it, because you're trying to protect the pulp. And you don't want further trauma to that tooth. You're trying to just keep it stable until the patient can get to
To a
care.
dip.
Yeah.
Okay, so if that is, then that's already in the regulation. It says,
The problem is that some temporary solutions, like a glass ionomer, can be in occlusion and stay long enough that it can be an occlusal issue. So that's why if we have a CE course that spells that out, and then that makes me more comfortable with saying, yeah, that's fine. If it's a temporary that crumbles away, then we don't have to worry about that.
so Dr. Kapoor's program's approved. So you would say, under her program, that they can do this using the glass
Glass ionomer.
in lieu of the one that's gonna crumble. Because the whole purpose of this is they are treated, but they're supposed to also then be referred to a dentist. So they should be
I understand my.
following up with a dentist.
My two problems, simply put, one is if there's a potential for that temporary filling to be an occlusion, and the person that's placing it doesn't understand how to
Because then you
check
have
that.
to use a high speed to drill it down, right?
Oh, okay, I
Because
see,
the
okay, because
lighter-
they
I'm
can't
assuming
use
it's
those.
gonna be a lighter material.
Otherwise, it's not gonna stay.
Right?
It could be just a,
Yes, so there,
literally filling.
there are
Yeah.
techniques that
I
are
know, so
taught
that's why I asked.
Exactly.
where
It
you're
would
just
have to be out
placing
of
it in
occlusion.
and it's
Because
just, you know, it's not an occlusion, it's just to kind of fill the cavitation.
Like you're in high occlusion, then what?
It would be more like a sealant. I mean, that's the whole idea behind it.
That's
Nothing,
what
it would be
we,
non-occlusion,
That's
so there
what
would be,
that
yeah.
material would be.
And then I think that when Dr. Capurro has that course, that would all be addressed.
Exactly.
She is an excellent educator. So I run a program. I have, I think, 5 or 6 public health dental hygienists that work for the program. They go to 50 different schools. Some of the things that I see that we probably wouldn't be able to introduce it in many ways is because of the parent consent. Now, we have 2 fixed locations. One has a dentist, and then the other has a dental hygienist. The parents come to those places. That's where I see that it could be utilized, the parent would be present, they would understand. But a lot of times these kids, 50% of my kids are uninsured.
I don't think
Families are poor
we're
with-
questioning that. It's if it gets, like Dr. Morris, if you put
Yes.
that temporary filling in, it's in high occlusion. Patient's gonna be in more pain
They
than
will be in
before,
more pain.
right? So then a high speed has to go into the mouth,
Right.
right? And then then what? That's the idea.
And that would not be a function that the dental hygienist could perform. So they would be taught by Dr. Capurro not to put it into over occlusion, high occlusion, but it would be under occluded.
Well, you can't check that after
Until
you've
after,
cured it.
yeah, I mean,
That's
if we
the
knew
problem.
that, then we, that's what I'm saying. So what kind of
So-
material
Do you
are
have
we
to
planning on
put
using?
limit-
Temporary,
material.
so when you put this fluoride on,
No.
do you have to put
She
something?
stated, no, not the fluoride, but she stated on a large filling,
Yeah.
they would put temporary glass ionomer restorations, right? So I was asking what that restoration was, whether it be like something scrapable, like IRM, right? Whether if you could check,
And we could do
or,
IRM. I mean, we
Right.
would have to do some
Or
research
a
on
light
what's
cure.
being utilized
It's
across the
glass ionomer
country.
that's being used across the country because of the fluoride releasing properties and because it's an interim restoration. For Nevada, we could use anything. I mean, and that's why I'm bringing it to the board.
So Dr.
to
Lee, would you
ask
be more
what would
comfortable
be-
in their verbiage that they put in IRM? Yes?
well, I'm
Well,
just
we're
asking
talking
how they
about
plan it.
largely cavitated.
Right.
I mean, that's gonna,
You can
And
easily.
and that's why the problem of, you know, the occlusion part's gonna.
Well, I'm
I
not a
think-
dentist either. I would think
Right.
that you could easily keep
Trust
it
me,
out
you
of
will come into
occlusion.
because you know what, as a dentist, right, when we do fillings, right, you
Yeah.
always have to check occlusion,
Correct.
right?
But-
And after,
The way it's taught in, from a public health setting, because I've been to some courses that have been offered by kind of the leaders in this industry, they're doing it so that a handpiece does not have to be used.
Right.
And so that it's not an occlusion. They even did this on, if you'll believe, with a bicycle triturator on the street in San Francisco, giving this out to patients to get them, you know, to stabilize them so that they could get to a dentist. But there is a technique that's taught so that a handpiece does not have to be utilized. We can teach that in this course. We can use another material if that would make the board feel comfortable. We have a lot of different options, but that's why I'm asking.
And there are sealant programs that are using glass ionomer as a sealant.
you know, when it's like
too.
just the occlusal surface, I
Got
don't think
it.
it's an issue, right? But when you have like a large, let's say, DOLB, right? Where you have the margin and the corner and all that cusp or something, right?
And you're gonna have to use a matrix band.
I almost feel like you're
So what's
thinking they're putting it
Am I
back
gonna
in
do that?
anatomy and
Yeah.
normal
Right, and they're
function.
not
No,
doing
I'm
that.
not, no, I'm
They're
not
This
doing
is-
it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, I've participated in some of these
Right.
programs, and it is basically, you could take a paintbrush and paint it on and go
Exactly.
away.
No,
It's
no.
just
You're
a
just
seal. is
Yeah.
all it
That's the
is.
same thing.
Exactly.
She stated, when she stated on large restoration or large decay, right? They would put in temporary restorations.
Right.
That's the part we're talking about.
But it's not to mimic
To
form
prevent
function.
root canals, that's what the problem is.
Right, so you're just covering, you're not trying to recreate the tooth anatomy.
Okay.
You're just
It's a
covering
sealant
it.
is what it really
Yes,
is.
yes.
Exactly.
Because
what it
otherwise
is.
you've left this child with this shell of a tooth and you put the silver diamine fluoride in it, so
Yeah.
that's gonna arrest all the decay, but they have this big gaping hole.
Yeah.
So it's a food trap, it probably will have sharp edges, so by just flowing the glass ionomer, you can just kind of cover that area so it's not as
So
much of a food trap for the
I
child.
have a question from a legal aspect. So from what I understand from just listening to this discussion is that the treatment that you're proposing is technically included in the definition of placement of a temporary restoration with non-permanent material as a palliative treatment.
Yes.
Yes.
So technically, so I think that the discussion we're having here is whether or not we want to consider amending a regulation to make it more,
Well, you have to also look at, okay, so this regulation is when you're in private practice. You're under the supervision of a dentist.
Right.
Okay? Now, public health are going, even though it's contained in there,
Correct.
they're going out and doing this without a dentist present.
Right.
So now,
so I think that what we need to talk about doing when we go through all of our regulations is making this more clear within the regulation pertaining specifically to the public health endorsement hygienists. And so, so currently, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's a equivalent placement of non-permanent material within the specific public health. Am I wrong about that? Did I miss
so
it?
the public health can do anything from 1A through N.
Okay, so it is.
So
okay,
it falls
does
under that.
fall within, okay. So
But the program has to be approved. So now, when her program was originally approved, this wasn't contained in the program. So
Okay.
now, she's asking for clarification that through my program, under L, what that means to the board and what they can do, and that's what they're trying to decide.
And then also, so the board knows, I'm on the advisory committee for oral health, so we're the advisors to the oral health program. The advisory committee has asked for a firm description of SDF and maybe using a SMART technique from this board, because it seems very ambiguous. My program has not used the silver diamine fluoride because of that. The dentist that's at the Dental Wellness Center, he has it and can use it on the kids if he's got someone that has a lot of caries and he wants to just kind of manage for a little while.
And that's why I brought it forward from the oral health program for the state. And so the policy that I've written is for the board to review as well for public health endorsed hygienists in Nevada. Because I don't think very many public health and Dorset hygienists are using it right now, and so this has become an issue. And so if the board would feel more comfortable adding a stipulation that they take a course through the Nevada Oral Health Program before they're allowed to place this without direct supervision, I mean, that's why I kind of offered that.
I think then
I
they issue
think-
an advisory opinion until the regs change, that through programs, the board issues the following advisory opinion that.
They can, but I also think that, so I wasn't here when you first were approved, so, wouldn't we also
We'd
need
amend
to
her-
amend
right.
your endorsement to include this?
But it would be for all public health.
For all public.
Yeah,
I see.
if it's coming from the
We're not
board.
doing it, because it's coming from the state.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, so it's your call whether or not you feel that this.
So in the past, I have been under Terry Chandler as a public health hygienist myself. So I trust and believe in anything that she recommends to the board. I trust and believe that anything that Dr. Kapora, who has immense amount of experience, that, you know, that it's not anything that we're doing that's detrimental to the public. If anything, it's helping the public, and mainly helping the children that have the problem. And everyone is, I would encourage everyone to go see Terry Chandler's facility to see exactly what she's doing. It's amazing, her dream. But more importantly, when Dr. Kapoor was saying putting on a CE class about the court, I think that all board members, if they're able to, should go. So we all understand it to a magnitude of how they are. I mean, I think the more you see it, the more you know it, the more you see, the more you read, which that's who I am. Because they're doing it in a lot of states already. So I think if you're more involved in the situation, then you can have a better appreciation and understanding. So with that being said, if we could move forward to do a motion to approve the advisory opinion, if anyone.
Well,
I move to approve.
Oh, just real quick, hold on. So procedurally, if you want to take a vote, in order to approve the advisory opinion, you need to issue a written advisory opinion. So with your vote, if you can also pretty much state, do you want your legal counsel to write the advisory opinion and then have the board look at it? Do you want a board member to write the advisory opinion? And it's specific to that the silver diamine fluoride, it is included under NAC 631-210, is that right? Mm-hmm. And then I heard some discussion regarding the specific and the temporary film, the technique and all that, to include that as a recommendation as far as how that's done in your advisory opinion. But your advisory opinion specifically is that this is included, yes, your recommendation is this is how you do it.
And they have to have the course.
I think your recommendation would be,
That would be the recommendation.
Right, but the advisory opinion is specific, right?
Right, and then from that recommendation, we can include that when we amend the reg.
Can we put something in there that, because there's other programs that may not be aware, so once the advisory opinion's issued, we can send the advisory opinion to the board-approved programs, and then they can make a request that we amend their program to include this now, so that we have documentation. So we know what programs are doing it. Some may elect not to do it, I don't know.
So the motion that is before us is exactly what? That we're going to create an advisory opinion?
You have to issue a written advisory opinion, yes.
Okay.
So you've.
So we're just making a motion that we would like to create an advisory opinion?
Right.
Okay.
And then you can direct who you want to write it and make it. Yeah, because it has to be written.
And then the approval of the opinion, is that something that we?
No, just we approve an advisory opinion and for Dr. Lee to write it with whatever, or whoever, you know.
But then that actually comes back to us.
That was too quick.
Or we
Picking on you today,
blanket
Dr.
statement,
Lee.
hey, do this, and this is what we want.
So right now, if you approve it, then somebody needs to write it, the board can review it before it's issued.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, great.
And do we want to write it like today? Is that something else we want to complete ASAP?
As soon as possible, it doesn't have to be today, but yeah.
I got a lot to do today.
So, yeah, somebody needs to write it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So we need a motion.
Oh, we're gonna motion?
He moved already, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's gotta be different, the motion to approve.
To create.
To create the advisory opinion.
Advisory board to write. A
Motion to approve request for advisory opinion,
motion to approve.
but I can't make it.
So motion to approve the advisory opinion
Requested by Dr. Kapora.
that was requested by Dr. Kapora.
By Dr.
So, who's making the motion?
I thought Lee was.
Dr.
Yeah,
Lee
that's
seconded
why.
it,
Who made it? Who made it?
No, Dr. Lee made it.
Who made it?
Who's second?
Sanders, I'll second.
Who's on third?
All right.
I don't know.
Any discussion? Okay. Motion approved.
All in favor?
All in favor? Sorry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion opposed? Any opposed? No, motion passes.
Thank you all.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's only the first one.
Yes, you want me to stay?
Oh,
Do you want me to keep that, Madam Chair?
Most people probably don't.
what's
remember
second?
using the understand.
Sorry.
There's another advisory opinion.
Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna, no, stay. C, request for the advisory opinion regarding whether telehealth is within the scope of practice pursuant to NRS 631.215. Dr. Kapora?
So I'm asking for clarification. NRS 629 is the telehealth chapter, which is an umbrella term and includes a multitude of different healthcare disciplines. And so I'm asking the board whether or not this chapter includes dentistry, and if it does, if providers of healthcare that are listed in this chapter include dentists, the dentist can complete the ADA-approved D9995, which is the teledentistry synchronous, and D9996, teledentistry asynchronous in the state. So I'm just asking for clarification from the board.
And so, we, as a board, cannot render an opinion on NRS 629. What I can tell the board is I can talk about 629 and then you can determine if, based on that, it would be included in 631.215. But we can't give an opinion regarding what the meaning of 629 is, because it's not our statute. So that's why the agenda item was written the way it was written. I can tell you that the statute that incorporated telehealth into Nevada changed a number of professional licensing board statutes to include telehealth within their particular statutes. And in fact, for the pharmacy board, they called it telepharmacy. That statute, that bill, did not change our statute. And so our statute currently in 215 doesn't include teledentistry specifically. So with that information at your disposal, it's for you to discuss and decide whether or not you feel that that is or should be, is included in our statute currently.
And so that's kind of what I'm asking, is under the NRS 631, if the telehealth services and methodologies would be within the scope of practice for a dentist.
For dentists or hygienists?
For dentists.
For dentists.
We could discuss both. I mean,
There was an interesting situation a couple board meetings ago where a dentist had nerve damage and he couldn't practice dentistry, but he was approached by a company to do a telehealth model and review records, which he could do. So there are going to be situations where maybe do a physical disability or rural communities where a telehealth model could be helpful in a public health setting. And it's, you know, it's technology, folks. We are evolving so quickly, and there's so much out there.
Sorry, if I could give just a little bit of background for why this was coming forward. So the Nevada Oral Health Program is working with Liberty Dental Plan, which is our Medicaid administrator for the state. We would like to roll out a pilot program with University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. It's an emergency room redirect pilot project, and it would use teledentistry software. So there would be a live consultation with the dentist within the emergency room to redirect those patients to the appropriate provider, and then there would be case management on the back end so that patients are able to access definitive treatment. So before we move forward with any type of pilot project, I want a clarification whether or not that's within the scope of practice.
Dr. Talley has something.
Yeah, so Dr. Talley, Executive Director, Nevada Dental Association. So, been around a long time. I sit on the Oral Health Advisory Committee for the governor also, and I made it very clear to that committee that they needed to get an advisory opinion from this board about whether telehealth is included in dentistry or not. One of the reasons for that too is during the last legislative session, SB 366 passed. Part of that bill talks about telehealth, teledentistry. So you may have not got that yet, but you're going to get it, and it mentions it. So that's going to change, I believe, what's in the statute for dentistry. So that's why I think it's very important for everybody that we get an opinion from the Board of Dental Examiners about telehealth.
The way that it currently is in 629, telehealth seemed to only affect physicians and nursing board, that and pharmacy. Those were the three. It was the osteopathic board, the medical board, and the pharmacy board and nursing board that they added telehealth to. Well, in pharmacy board they called it telepharmacy. Telehealth was added to those specific chapters. So the question would be, when the legislature was enacting this statute, if the intention was to be for dentistry, why didn't they add it to our chapter? Because it's not in our chapter.
Is SB 366 going to be added to your chapter? I believe it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
I believe it is. So you need to take a real hard look. You may not be able to make that opinion right now.
Right.
So today, maybe no, but I don't know when. I think SB 366 is waiting on the regulations for it to take effect. So at some point, you're going to have to address it.
So Dr. Capurro, for your program for the hospital, will this, if we don't find out about telehealth and a teledental model, will that impact it? Will you be able to move forward?
We won't be able to move forward. I mean, if the board's opinion is that a dentist should not be using any telehealth services to communicate with the patient, then I know, I think it would have a statewide impact for private practitioners as well as from the public health perception of what we can do.
The intent of her program is to go into the hospital, use this telehealth model, they'll be able to use an intraoral camera and be able to get information from the dentist, so they're not using the emergency room for dental emergencies. And then they'll get navigated to a community program.
Who's providing those services?
Well, the services will be provided by like Nevada Health Centers, Community Health Alliance.
No, who's the one that you said in the emergency room that's doing this?
It's a licensed dentist. It's a licensed Nevada dentist, yes.
Through Liberty Dental.
Is paying for this pilot project. We've been working together to kind of make this a reality. We're training the nursing staff, but we're trying to redirect those non-traumatic dental conditions out of the emergency room and to a dental home.
So they're not using your tax dollars in the emergency room and not getting treatment, because we all know a dental emergency doesn't get dental treatment at the hospital. they get meds.
And they will not be given opioids.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this is actually an offshoot of programs that exist nationally in hospital emergency rooms that aren't using telehealth, but are actually using a person bodily to try and keep patients out of the emergency room and get them into doctors' offices. And it's proven very successful in several states. So this is really a variety of that might have more opportunity, because those other programs require somebody to actually walk into an emergency room. And this might make it more generalizable. So it's very appealing to me.
Yes.
It's a very...
And Dr. Talley, I did introduce Dr. Capurro to the ADA and to Dr. Jane Grover, so she's going to sit on that committee when we have our quarterly calls with the community dental health coordinators. And Dr. Grover's very interested in this project that Dr. Capurro is trying to work on.
So I just have a quick question. So you have a Nevada licensed dentist, right? In that facility to do, okay, so
Yeah.
I go to the emergency room, I got a toothache.
Yes. So
What happens?
you put on your form that it's, your condition is related to your teeth, right?
Right.
You're immediately taken to the teledentistry area.
Okay.
There's a live dentist that's FaceTiming kind of with you. You have an intraoral camera. They would be talking to the patient, giving a consultation, and then if
And he's in Nevada?
and
Yes.
he's
He's
in
in-
Nevada.
okay.
Yes, and then if there are, more emergent situations, they would redirect that patient back to the triage nurse, back to the physicians. But the point is to get them out of the waiting room, out of the physician's area, and over to a dentist to look at their problem. And then there's case management as well for all patient types. So they will receive follow-through so they can actually get the definitive treatment and not circle back to the emergency room.
So I'm the patient, I have the camera,
Yes.
and the dentist says, okay, open your mouth. I put the camera.
The nurse is also trained and can help.
Okay, so the photos are taken, and he would be able to diagnose off of those.
Right.
Okay, because this just says, it doesn't talk about how he has to diagnose. Okay, all it says is, the practice of dentistry, evaluate or diagnose, profess to evaluate or diagnose, or treat, or professes to treat surgically or non, any of the diseases, disorders, conditions, lesions of the oral cavity. So, if they're licensed here, they already can do it. It's just, it's the difference in the method of how they're doing it.
Right.
Dr. Taylor?
You might as well come and sit down
This is exactly why I brought this up when we were talking about it in the oral health program. I said, stop. The first thing you must do is get the opinion from the board, because from these regulations and these statutes that we have, there's nothing clear about teledentistry in there. That's the new word. There's nothing clear. It needs to be cleared up. That's my point.
So, but based on the
Whether
statute.
you allow it or not, something needs to be put in there.
If it's a Nevada licensed dentist and he's evaluating through teledentistry or through, I think we could do a reg to this and then spell out when doing that, I guess.
To include teledentistry.
Do we need
Yeah.
to be like looking at the, say, I would think the closest in comparison would be the medical board for telemedicine to see how did they word.
I actually pulled Ohio just past teledentistry. And so they have a whole protocol. Matter of fact, I had printed it out. So, because that's actually to dentistry, they have a whole process of what teledentistry is, informed consent, all of these things. So, that we can look at other states and kind of look at what they're.
What would be the difference of a patient calling you on like a weekend at night and saying I got toothache though?
You're able to
You're able to see it. And
It's better. It's better because you can see it.
What's the
Yeah.
difference?
Well, instead you'll have the emergency room calling you saying I have a person with a toothache.
And Liberty Dental is employing the dentist. And Liberty Dental is putting in to play a dentist that will be available.
Your comment is about a patient of record. This is about not
Public.
a patient of record.
The
So
UMC
it's
patient.
it would be a new patient to you.
Well, you
That's the
don't have
difference.
GPR right
But you'll be able to be at home, Skype, no, just kidding. You'll be able, I mean, eventually, you would be able to.
You'll be in
If you had
Hawaii.
the appropriate, you wouldn't have to
Hoping that the-
necessarily.
hoping that the
yeah,
ER
pull the
has-
tooth out.
Hoping that that
You're still
ER
gonna get a
that's,
prescription though, isn't it?
Well,
hoping that
I don't
ER
know,
that's taking
sometimes that's
care of
the most you can do,
L2Ks
right?
and everybody
Maximum.
else has the nurse designated.
They're taking care of the
to-
heart attack as opposed to
Yeah,
a
but,
wisdom tooth.
but again, hoping that they have the staffing to have that person delegated.
Okay, so can we put in a
To do
motion to have the advisory opinion regarding whether the telehealth is within the scope of practice? Can we have a motion of that, but more importantly, I want to put on the table to Deb and, okay, I would also like to put in, I want to ask a question that we're gonna end up having to address it at some point anyway, like Dr. Talley said. But what I'm saying is that can we just approve the telehealth and approve I have a two-part question, and approve the application of the silver diamond fluoride? And when that, yeah, but in that opinion, what I'm saying is that then to create, or just to have like a little committee meeting with Terry and Dr. Talley to kind of collaborate the verbiage that we need to have in the.
You're talking about two separate things. You're
Yeah,
talking about
that's why I'm
regs.
asking the question, so
You're
because I
talking-
don't know, so I'm
yeah,
asking for education.
You're talking about regs versus the request for an advisory opinion. So what you can do is you can move to approve the request and issue an advisory opinion. You can deny the request and say you're not going to issue an advisory opinion because it's already in statute, that the way you're reading the statute, it's allowed. Or you can, and then we can also put on our future committee meetings to amend our regs to make this more clear. But it's two separate questions, whether or not you want to issue an advisory opinion answering this question for the time being until we get the regs, or if you feel it doesn't need one because you feel the statute clearly allows it or clearly doesn't allow it.
Right.
So if you do feel that the statute allows it, I would still issue the advisory opinion.
Yes.
Put it in writing that says.
Yes.
That's what it says.
I do have a
Because
question
that's what the
though.
advisory opinion is
If
for.
I were to write an advisory opinion that specifically addressed this question, I'd want to see more programmatic information from you guys about what you're actually doing. Because right now, I'm not process clear on what you're doing. And so I'm kind of guessing, I think I know.
About how they're communicating.
You know,
how
you
they're
have a proposal that says, patient X, here's what happens to patient X when they enter the system. That would make it much easier to determine whether it complied with statute or not.
But that's one specific program. This isn't for one specific program. This, like Melanie said, this is a regulation, so.
Yeah, you're gonna
So either you're, right.
So either we're
For
saying,
anywhere.
we're fine with the definition that we have,
Yes.
and we would like a further clarification definition of teledentistry or add verbiage, or we're not going to include that.
So that really confuses me, to be very honest, because now I'm not sure what the question that's being asked
wouldn't
is,
just be
because
for
it's
them.
coming from them.
I know, but it wouldn't be just for them, it would be for everybody.
That's
That-
exactly right.
We brought it forward because we want to use teledentistry in this particular
Yeah.
instance, but it's statewide that multiple providers want to use teledentistry and aren't sure what they should do. So
Okay.
I'm bringing it forward because
That
we want to
modifies
use
your
it.
question. Now I
but-
look at your question
yeah.
differently.
So
You had made a statement though, so is there particular equipment?
Yes, yes, the software and equipment, it's a rolling cart, it's like a kiosk with a monitor. And they turn it on and they can FaceTime with the dentist with the intraoral camera. And so it can be rolled into any bay of the emergency room. And the
actually has
patient can talk to the
two
patient.
cameras on it.
As to,
Yeah. Right.
one for the
So that's
patient
what I'm
and one
saying,
for
so
the
the reg would have to
Minnesota
clarify
Health.
It's just
that
like a
somebody's
conversation.
not just, like I said, Skyping somebody,
No.
and that's what I mean.
No.
So I think the question
Minnesota
for
already
today's
does it.
purpose is a little more, it's pretty simple as to whether or not NRS 631215 includes teledentistry within the scope of dental practice.
I'd like to make a motion that it does.
So to
But that-
approve the request of the advisory.
Approve the request of the advisory with a clarification of how we're going to define teledentistry.
And so currently, the advisory opinion would only be issued, that the dentists have to be Nevada licensed dentists.
Yeah, if a Nevada dental dentist right now is doing something similar to that, according to those regs, where he has the ability to do that, because he can take a phone call, right now. And so, but we as a board need to look at more specifically how much latitude that we're going to give telehealth and or teledentistry. And we also need to discuss if we're going to use the term just teledentistry or if we're going to use the term telehealth. Because obviously somebody's already defined those terms and we need to come to grips with, we have to address it anyway.
And depending on the board's opinion or that clarification, we would take that back to Medicaid as well. If that should be included in the chapter. The codes are not listed in our benefit schedule right now. We were using this pilot project to investigate that. So we would use whatever recommendations are coming from the board for that.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
What was the first?
What he said.
So Liberty Dental covers fees for
Not at this time, because at this time, they don't know that it's acceptable in the NRS, if I understand right.
Right, they currently use it for their emergency patients, but we're using it, we're
On the medical
expanding it a little
side,
bit
too.
for our pilot project.
Okay, because I noticed there is something about that in 629 under telehealth, that they have to be able to, they pay for that.
Right.
So that's what I was asking, because.
Liberty's paying for it right now because it's not reimbursable by Medicaid yet, because we don't have the language and the clarification from the board to add it to the chapter, the MSM chapter 1000.
So we need you.
So we have a second?
Go ahead.
We have a second. I just want to know what the motion is again. I'm not clear. We bantered a little. What is the motion?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think the motion is to approve the request for an advisory opinion to establish that teledentistry is within the scope of Nevada dental practice.
Of NRS 631215.
215. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Comma, we need to have
Further discussions
just-
as to how to define it.
For clarification, it's not teledentistry, because that's not defined, it's telehealth.
It's not defined.
Right, so
Right.
telehealth is, and so,
Yeah.
right, so don't use teledentistry in the minutes.
Well, but that's part of what we need to
Determine for
determine.
later on.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the
But that's not part of the motion.
Can I, so under telehealth, we did regs,
Mhm.
and we called it telehealth, but then we also
Just
defined,
define it. Uh-huh.
yeah,
To include.
teledentistry, right, and then you could refer it back to that chapter 629. Okay,
And dentists are covered under telehealth in 629, so, I mean, so I don't know if you wanna.
Yeah, I mean, they're medical providers as defined by 629, but then there's nothing, but then when you look at what led to telehealth, if you look behind that, and they did amend other board statutes to include telepharmacy or telemedicine or whatever, they didn't do that with ours. So that would be something that we would have to incorporate by regulation.
And it's very important. As an executive director for our state, just as Deb said, there's many states that are grappling with this right now, not just you. But I would say go to those states that have it in place, like Ohio. Take a look at what they've done. It's a great starting point.
yeah.
But it needs to be defined.
All right, so we had a motion, we had a second.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
I heard you.
Any discussion? Any opposed?
What?
Four.
I think four. I think you have to vote
All in
for.
favor.
Yeah.
All in favor? Sorry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We will get you in a bit.
Thank you. Turn around. Thank you. The whole kitchen sink. Sorry.
That thing's dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, item D, request the board delegate authority to the chair, executive director, and the general counsel to make any decisions regarding litigation concerning any action or proceedings in which the public body of any member or employee of the public body is a party in an official capacity or participates or intervenes in an official capacity pursuant to Assembly Bill 70, Chapter 241. Okay.
So,
Interpretation, please, Counselor.
okay, so at the recent legislative session, Assembly Bill 70 was passed, and it includes within that bill the ability for boards to delegate litigation decisions to the chair, the executive director, and any other similar position or whatnot. I don't believe it, anyway, but it specifically allows the board, so as we've seen over the past year, anytime any litigation decision has to be made, we all have to get a quorum, get together, and make that decision. And this is allowing the boards to delegate that responsibility to one or two or a committee or whatever. And so that's what that means.
When you say a litigation decision, is that, should we move forward in a certain litigation? Should we try to settle it? I mean, those kinds of things?
So
What do
it's,
you-
yes,
what does it
so
mean?
when, and it's not defined, so that would be something that you could define and you could determine which types of decisions that person can make or not make, or those people. So it
Yeah,
wasn't
so
defined.
In
as to-
the past, we had a policy, so this is nice, because now they actually put it into this Assembly Bill 70 in Chapter 241. So in the past, the board's policy is if we had somebody practicing illegally, the board gave the authority to the executive director and to the general counsel based on, evidence, not just, that we have evidence that somebody may be practicing illegally. The board gave us that authority to move forward if we needed to file a TRO in court to stop them from doing it. We didn't have to bring it to the board to have it, so that we had a policy, but now that's just one example of what this would cover.
So, for instance, there are rules in place that if the board, to initiate litigation such as that, and even to the extent of if there's a litigation that has occurred, and the question is whether or not the board wants to go forward with an appeal. That would be another situation. The situation that we recently encountered, whether or not we wanted to engage in mediation, that would be another situation. Whether or not, certain, there's just, there could be a multitude of issues, and perhaps you want to say, we'll delegate the authority to this person or this committee up to and including settlement. We want the board to vote as a group on any settlement or anything like that. So it's up to you to define what you want, if you want to delegate, and second, if you do, how much you want to delegate. So that would be for you to decide.
Sanders, again, there's convenience to delegation because we don't meet that often, and it's oftentimes we need something a little more expedient within the pressing issues of any litigation. We get to choose the membership of any group or whatever we want to do.
So
Is that what
the
this
statute
allows?
specifies chair, executive director, and I don't recall the verbiage, or any similar position
yeah.
or similar designation or something like that. So, and it's I believe that the statute also, and unfortunately, I apologize, I didn't print it out, but I believe that it says "or," indicating that the statute would allow you to appoint one person. The way we've put it here is "and/or," because if you feel it would be more appropriate to have all three of us, or two of us, or, you know, however you feel it's appropriate. But it's a small section in a large bill, and it doesn't go into a whole lot of detail, but it is something that,
And I will say, for the illegal practice, it's a lot easier, because if you have to get a quorum together, this person's still out there possibly practicing. So, you know, in order to protect the public, as opposed to litigation that someone is suing us, you know, you may not feel comfortable with us making decisions, and you want to be a part of it, and rightfully so. So, I mean, it's up to you. Or you could just say, no, we want to continue, we want, you know, we don't want to delegate that. Or you could think about it, and we can table it.
We can table it.
Do we have
more tables?
Yeah.
Do we have a?
We've got our whole next meeting planned.
I mean, the reality is, I've called into these meetings we've called to have teleconferences with from vacation. You know, and those kinds of things are disruptive. And it's like, I'm on vacation, I don't want to deal with y'all. But I think, I have no problem with a small group. I think it should never be invested in one. I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
But I think if we appoint a small group of the 2 or 3 that they mentioned, I'm actually pretty comfortable with that.
This is Kasani. Could we define this that we use the group of 3 positions if we are imposing the litigation, and then we could define it as the whole board if we are getting sued?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because, you know, who's best in the ringer? If it's all of us, I think we all want to be part of that. If it's we're trying to protect the public and there's an illegal practice, just as before, I think that we have to give authority to a smaller group to pursue that.
And I also want to point out that the language of this statute is that whatever delegation you give can, according to the statute, also be delegated to make decisions in a proceeding in which any member or employee of the public body is a party. And so I would think that if you are actually a named party, you might want to have some say, and you wouldn't want to delegate. But that is another thing that the statute allows the board to delegate, but I don't recommend.
This is more, I have a comment on this. Looking at Dr. Wassef's book, and it was obvious that the executive director was problematic, right? And what scares me about the language here is having our executive director in that same boat, or you in that same boat, or one other person in that same boat, and having, you know, accusatory type things going, well, hey, you know, you acted on your own accord. So I'd like to make a motion that we either table this for further discussion at another meeting, or not try to delegate one. It's too general, the language. It's and or.
Well, that's how we put that, because
they left it could be one person.
Yeah,
and
we
we're
were
not
not
comfortable
comfortable
with
with one
We wanted to
person.
be a three person.
Right.
But even the 3-person, like there's things that happen, right, behind the scenes that you guys do. His stipulation, for instance, right? The board had no prior working knowledge to that. We got it 3 days ago.
Correct.
So not only do we have to try to digest his entire case, but now we have to try to decipher your potential
But that has
stipulation.
nothing, but
that exactly does have what to do with this.
Not with
because-
this, because that's not litigation.
This is litigation, this
This
is
is-
court.
this is specific to litigation.
The power that.
Correct, but I don't have any power. This was an ability to, because we're not all, as a body of 13 people, going to sit around and draft a stipulation.
Was
So-
not this Assembly Bill 70, wasn't that some kind of tax division board issue? Isn't that where that came from?
That I
Where
don't know.
where the executive director of the tax.
Can I make a
division board-
motion that we table it, and if everybody can think about their schedule, because we have a lot of tabled stuff, if we can meet in August as a board meeting versus all the way till September?
I would say.
I can't get a board meeting on
Yeah.
this. I've tried.
We've already,
I'm into September.
Couldn't get a quorum?
Can we meet at night? I mean, Saturday, something. I mean, there's just way too many, they have way too many questions.
Well, I just like to say, well, you know, I think part of the audit was transparency, but, you know, we come together when we have a board meeting in the open forum to be transparent, but by delegating into like a little smaller group, then all that transparency disappears.
No. This is only in litigation.
Yeah,
So
but
this
litigation-
is,
I mean, but
litigation means we're taking somebody to district court
But
for the
you're-
illegal practice, or somebody's suing us.
But your language says
But they all know.
litigation, any action.
Well, it's not my language, it's
Concerning any-
the
Well,
language from the bill.
Yeah, whoever wrote it. Any action or proceeding.
No, regarding litigation
Litigation.
concerning any action or proceeding. This is strictly as to litigation, strictly.
Well,
And if,
so as a non-attorney,
Mhm.
isn't most of what we do litigatable?
No.
It's-
oh, is it litigatable?
Yeah.
In theory, yes, but that doesn't mean it's in litigation.
Well, this doesn't say that it is in litigation. This
Yes, it
just says
does.
Litigation.
Regarding
No.
litigation.
Because you want to start in litigation.
Yeah.
Litigation is in court. It has nothing to do
But
with
you
what
want
the
to start
board does here.
investigation.
I don't want to
I mean,
start
no,
an
no, no,
investigation
no.
on anybody.
Like the legal dentist, you want, so you're going to investigate, right?
No. The illegal, the example that Deb has given you for the illegal practice of dentistry is, we as a board, long before I got here, and probably long before any of the board members got here, there has been litigation in other states where boards have sent out cease and desist letters to people who are practicing illegal dentistry, okay? And other courts from other states have come back and said, you don't have jurisdiction over those people because they're not licensees. So you can't send a cease and desist, so you can't as a board take it. So what the decision of this board in Nevada was, is that if we have someone on whom we have evidence that they are practicing without a license, that we initiate litigation in court to have the court determine if they are illegally practicing, and if so, whether or not a restraining order should be issued against that person. That is the type of thing that this, this legislation is saying, you don't have to come together as a board to determine whether or not that suit for TRO is going to be filed. That's an example. This isn't an example of, it doesn't change any other, our board or any other board's investigatory process. It doesn't change those statutes or those regulations. This is simply regarding matters that are in court or that the board needs to bring to court for whatever reason. And if you're not comfortable with it, then make a motion to vote no. I mean, it's we just put it on because that's what the statute said, and we want to give you the ability. If you want to go back and look further at the statute and discuss it some more and table it, we can absolutely do that as well. But it's not saying we never have to meet again and you don't get to know anything and you know, Deb, the president, and I are just going to make all this. It's not what it's saying at all, at all.
Okay, so there's still some question. A couple people need to take a break. So what I'm asking is, can we table this? And when I said, can we have a meeting in August, on a Friday in August, for the board, to look at things that are tabled to now, so they can work, except for the Dr. Wasaf situation, that we could all meet again in August for a full day board hearing or whatever. And everybody, some people said that they weren't available for the budget and for the whatever earlier email. But if everybody could just take a break, 5 minutes, look at their calendars, come back, agree on a date in Friday in August, so we could just like redo a couple of these things. Because if not, it's just, we're gonna be here all day and we still have other things to get through.
What's those dates? The 23rd of August and the 9th.
Is there like an
9th?
issue with weekends? Is there like an issue with weekends?
Every Friday, every Friday in August. Can everybody look at every Friday in August and see
No,
when they're
because it's
available?
not every Friday, because the board conference room is being used. It's only August 9th and August 23rd.
I'm out of town the 9th.
So it's only those 2 dates that this room's available to hold a meeting. 9th or 23rd.
Okay, we're gonna take a restroom break while we think about it then, I guess.
Did we schedule the budget finance committee on the 23rd?
Nope.
Approval of the voluntary surrender of license, we're gonna take them as one, if that's okay. NAC 631.160, 1 through 14. These are the dentists that are voluntarily surrendering their license. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept the voluntary surrenders as listed on the agenda.
Second, Pisani.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion approved. Okay, consideration of application moderate sedation temporary permit NAC 631.2254 and NAC 631.2233. Dr. Owen Trin, moderate sedation, patients 13 years of age and older.
So Dr. Moore reviewed his application and has requested Dr. Trin come before the board to discuss his, the training and and whether he meets the requirements to be issued that license.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, wait, yeah.
So Dr. Trin is here
Yes.
to discuss Dr. Moore's concerns.
Doctor, you can come on up right here.
Thank you for coming, Dr. Chen. I appreciate it very much. The regulations require that you have 20 monitored cases, and that you did the sedation on, and you've submitted 36 cases total. 16 we can't count because they're not part of the program, according to the stipulations. 10 are shared responsibility with another specialty. And so that really leaves 10 of the 20 that are regulations, in black and white require. So there's a little bump there that we as a group and a committee need to work through. The second thing is how the program is structured. It's not, while you have recommendations from your from the chairs of the department, how the programs are structured, it's not structured as a typical program. And so I'd like to hear your responses to that, and then maybe we can move forward.
What do you mean by it's not structured as a typical program?
When we look at other programs, there's the way that it's laid out is that it's a continuum. In your program, you had you had started with something in 1 year for a couple of hours, and then it's a year later or so that you have another portion of it, and then I think the third,
It was in 2017.
yeah, third.
Because this is a 3-year residency program, so we have 3 years to make that completion.
Right, so historically, when the board approves a sedation program,
Right.
you have to do 60 hours of didactic that's exclusively to the administration of moderate sedation.
Yes.
So in other programs, you do your 60 hours of didactic, and then you start to administer. According to your transcript, you took a course in 2015, or a class in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
You started administering in 16,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't complete the portion of that program until sometime in 16. And then you were administering from 16, 17, and 18, and then I believe you finished the final in the fall of 2017. So you're administering prior to getting all your didactic.
That's not true. The moderate
Okay.
sedation course was given initially before we even start administering medication or administering sedation to patients. And then the physical diagnosis, as well as, give me 1 second.
Emergency oral drugs or something?
So the physical diagnosis and then the principal of oral medicines was taken toward the end of the residency program. So the moderate sedation courses was already qualify us to start administering sedation to patients.
Oh, this is the other book.
So you're saying your DENT 7102 was 60 hours of didactic?
They classify as 48 hours, but then we have additional training in addition to that. But the course itself, the didactic lecture itself was only 48 hours. But then we have additional training from our own faculties within the departments to qualify us for the sedation. So all that 60 hours was completed prior to us administering sedation to patient.
Where's the additional hours from fall of 2015? Where's
Those
that?
additional might be like, medical emergency,
No, I mean, where are they in your didactic that you've given us? Because I can see the DENT 7102,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see where it's listed. The next class is listed in 2016. Looks like, and that's
And that's partly my fault. I should actually I have given you guys the transcript. There are additional classes within that particular semester that you could use towards sedation.
Would you like to address those for us and get those to us?
No, I
Or
give
you
you
have
I give you the board the transcript.
No, that's what I'm looking at right here.
No. There's a separate transcript of all the courses I took throughout my residency. I have given the board that. Yep.
So when you complete a sedation course through a residency,
Yes, ma'am.
don't they give you a certificate of completion?
No, because it qualifies through the completion of the residency, so there's no separate certificate for that. And there's no other board that have asked me for that certificate. I mean, I obtained my sedation license from Minnesota, and they did not even require it because they understood that's how the university operates. It might be different. It might be new to Nevada board, but it wasn't new to Minnesota.
Yeah,
Like all of our resident, perio, oral surgery, prosthodontists, whatever specialty there is, we all went through the same programs. It's not like because that particular program only was created for my particular department. It was created for all departments.
Like at UNLV, when they give a conscious or a moderate sedation permit, they give them a certificate of completion, and then the program
So
director signs off.
in addition to my completion of the certificate in prosthodontics, the chief of the oral maxillofacial surgery at Nellis also certified me for consultation. I do have a certificate for that, if you really want it. I mean, I have it with me here.
That's from Nellis, though.
Yes.
So, for the board's sake, I don't think that we're questioning your competency.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it might just be semantics of getting everything put together because it's an atypical program and it's an atypical application. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I guess I don't know how to describe it to you because that's how the program is structured. I mean, and every resident go through that particular university, get their sedation with any problems.
Yeah, I understand that, and because your state has certain requirements
Right.
that's different than ours, unfortunately. Like if we only needed 10 cases, we probably wouldn't have this discussion. I would just make a recommendation to the board that everything looks good.
Yep.
But in your case, because we require 20, and you're only submitting 10, that's problematic.
No. I'm submitting 20, but you're saying that 10 of those involve propofol. You might have problem with it, and then the letter from my program director have clarified to you that the propofol was administered by the surgical faculty, was not by me.
Right, and that was part of my problem in looking at it, because I said, those 10 cases, then you really were an observer, not a participant.
Right, you weren't the operator.
Drugs.
No, I'm the operator. I administered midazolam and fentanyl.
Right, but once the other guy comes over and shoots him up with propofol, he's under general anesthesia now, and you...
So that's according to your interpretation of what general or deep sedation. It's not even general anesthesia, it's deep sedation. Yes, according to your interpretation of what deep sedation is. My interpretation of deep sedation is when patients cannot breathe on their own, they're under deep sedation. When there's had to be an assistant of an airway, like an LMA, an ONA, or a PNA, then that patient is under deep sedation. But our patient, even though we administer propofol, that patient was never under that deep sedation because no additional airway assistance was provided to patient. Patient responded to command throughout the whole procedures. So that patient was never under deep sedation. So let me clarify your question here. So in DEN 72-2010, we have a medical emergency course that offer within this particular course that give us the additional hours to the constant sedation course. Because as you can see here, constant sedation was the first course we taken entering the university.
Okay. I'd like to propose to the board that we get further clarification on your 60 hours before administration, and then that we also that I bring back to the committee for a full review of the additional 10 cases that involve propofol.
And in addition to this, I also bring a certificate from the Air Force, certified for constant sedations.
Okay.
And I have the 20 cases go along with that, just particularly inside the Air Force, not including anything outside of residency.
But you understand that we have regulations, right? We're not questioning competency, that you've done a lot of cases, they're all great. We just have some regulations that you're not satisfying. And rather than saying no, I'd like to propose to the board that me and my committee get back together and see if we can make it work for you. Because right now, you don't meet the regulations. I'm trying to explain that to you. Okay? Do you have a question about those?
No, I understand. So, as I explained in my letters, through residency, it's difficult for you to do both procedures and sedations. You do one of those. You never do both at the same time. Whereas through a paid curriculum, like you go to LVI to get your sedation license, you get your sedation training. All you do is just sedation, and they get someone else doing some other stuff for you. In residency, we have to worry about academic curriculum. We have to worry about patients. We have to worry about getting our sedations in. So pairing is just part of what we do. Pairing with other discipline, pairing with other departments, that's what we do to get our to complete our requirement.
He's not making the rules.
Oh, I understand.
He's trying to follow the statutes, the regulations, and stuff like that. And if it doesn't meet that, then you can't say that.
So if it doesn't meet that, how do I, are you asking me to go and get a new sedations training?
No.
To complete all 20 cases all in one training?
No, I was hoping for better clarification on the 60 hours of didactic that are before you start administering. And what you've told me and what your director has told me is that didn't take place. That's problematic. So it's 40,
You're just saying that it took place because of the 48 hours, but then you didn't understand the other courses that could supplement that additional 12 hours to meet the 60 hours.
I'm going by what you turned in, Dr. Chan.
Yes, sir.
So that's why I'm saying that if you want to,
So on the 48 hours of your moderate sedation, conscious sedation, is there a way that you could get something from the University of Minnesota, or I can request it, that breaks out what that course covered? Because all it says is 48 hours in this, but when we usually approve courses, we have a synopsis of what that education included.
And Dr. Conrad letter to you provide you with that synopsis. So now, 48 hours, that's what the university call it, but the course itself is twice a week for the whole semester.
Right.
Right, so it's not like, oh, they only meet for 48 hours and that's it. No, it's a complete one semester of sedation, just lectures alone.
And did you have like a pharmacological course associated with this?
No, it's all in once, ma'am.
Is that fall under the 48-hour one, or because there's the 48
hours.
and then there's a 12 and then there's a
So 48 hours, that's what the university call it, so that they can charge the student, because they charge the student by the hours of lecturing, right? But then that doesn't mean that we only sit in the lecture for 40 hours. As I explained, it's 3 hours twice a week for the entire semester.
Okay.
I think specifically what we'd like that would help us is what's covered in the hours of didactic that you have. I think the committee would like to see that. Because,
yeah, sure. I mean, I'd be happy to send you all the lectures in that course. I mean, I'd be happy to do so.
Just a synopsis. Just an
The syllabus, you're saying, the syllabus.
Yeah. So that's fine.
The two pieces are the didactic hours, and that's what I think we're wrestling with. I had the same problem when I looked through it, trying to pull the pieces out to total the 60 hours. I'm more than willing to say you did enough cases by virtue of what they did in Nellis to say, okay, I can recognize that as you're completing 20 legitimate cases. I'm just torn with the hours like he is, and I'm wrestling a lot with that one.
And if we approve this is a new course to us, so if we can approve it as an approved course, then the next person that comes along doesn't have to go through all of the headache that you've had to go through. So we're asking you for a little more help to make that happen, because as it reads, the two issues are, you don't have 20 supervised cases of conscious sedation, moderate sedation, okay? Propofol is a general anesthetic. When you push that, the case doesn't become a conscious sedation case anymore.
That's according to Nevada regulation.
But that's what we have to go on.
Right.
That's the manufacturer. Look it up.
No, I understand.
Okay, if you push a general anesthetic, where are you going with that?
I understand. So that's what I'm saying. Just like Dr. Sanders, he believes that I have complete the 20 cases. Your belief is that, because the 20 cases...
I'm not questioning that you did 20 cases, sir. I'm saying that our regs require 20 supervised moderate sedation cases.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you'd like to apply for a general anesthetic license,
and I'm not.
That's fine. But the regs are what they are. I'm trying to help you get your permit.
Yes, I'm trying to give you the clarification. I'm saying, if Minnesota is the first time you guys approaching this particular case, then look at the Nellis certification. Look at the cases at Nellis.
So do you have to go through certification through Nellis if you want to administer conscious sedation?
Yes.
So they have their own
Yes, ma'am.
separate program?
Yes, ma'am.
On top of, and what is their program? Just the
60
cases?
hours, 20 cases. So how I was credentialed in Nellis is they look at my training through residency, and they say, okay, and then they have a separate examinations that I have to pass in order for them to issue me something like this. And then throughout the time, they will monitor my cases. So I perform the cases, and then
So that's the 20 cases that you provided us.
I provide you the 20 cases from the university,
And then you
and then I provide you the
supplemented it.
16 cases from from Nellis. I have 4 additional cases with me here to give it to you so that you have a complete 20 cases from Nellis.
But Nellis isn't, we don't have that as an approved.
No, but you
course,
could do
we
it as
can-
part of this.
Yeah,
we
but I
can
don't
look at it.
think you need to say it has to be, I don't think the 20 cases need to be at the same as the
The
court. I don't know.
So you're still back to
So
60.
Nellis accepted the 20 cases that you submitted?
Yes. No, yes,
He
exactly.
did them there.
Because Nellis accept the licenses that was offered by Minnesota as well as
Right.
they examining the cases I perform in residency.
Right, but there were 20 cases
Yes, ma'am.
in residency. So what was their criteria for the 20 cases?
It's the
that's
Air
different
Force,
than
it's the
ours?
military.
No, I know, I'm just curious as to what, their criteria was obviously different than ours for
Correct.
how they viewed those 20.
Correct,
cases.
like in Minnesota, you only have to do 10 cases, and 5 of them can be on a mannequin. So we require 20 cases. So he submitted 20 cases, but the question is whether he was considered the operator once the oral surgeon came in and administered the propofol. Did it change it from him monitoring moderate sedation or monitoring a patient under general?
So if we accepted Nellis as a recognized provider for training,
I don't know.
the issue really would, Go
Well,
away.
they're not applying, they haven't applied. So I think if it's fair to say that with a combination of his specialty program, and in addition, I would probably get a letter from, you could approve it pending. I'd get a letter from whoever oversaw your training at Nellis to, certify that that is the case. You're basically giving him the permit based upon the combination of both.
Can I just clarify? Nellis, you did an additional 20?
Yes.
And 60 hours of didactic, right?
Right, so it's not that Nellis accepted your 20 from Minnesota, you did an additional 20
Yes, ma'am.
at Nellis.
Well,
So do you have to still take it back to committee with the additional?
yeah.
Did you submit those 20 from Nellis?
Yes.
So I
16 of
submit the
16.
16. I have 4 here.
You have 4 there.
So basically, we have
40.
20, well, you have 26 you have 26 patient cases, the 10 from Minnesota and the 16 from Nellis, that you were the operator for the moderate
Yes.
sedation. So he has submitted 26 cases. He's only
Right.
required to submit 20. But historically, all the 20 are usually done under the same
Under
program.
where you get the
One.
60 hours.
One program, because
Right.
that program has been looked at, either CODA approved or whatever, but it's an accepted state, we accept it as a program. And this is a new program for us.
Right.
And it's falling out of what we already have as regulations. And if we start combining programs, so we either need to look at the Nellis program as a sole
Yeah.
qualification, or we're gonna have to, do something different that's not within our regs to do.
Who was the point of contact for Nellis?
Is Dr. Paul Clark. He's the chief oral maxillofacial surgery element, and he's also an MD.
If I gave you my business card, could you contact me back and provide me with, so that it might be easier just to see if that course meets our criteria, then you would receive the permit.
So this
Under-
this course typically offered to AAGD resident, which I'm part of their associate professor. I teach the AAGD resident
Just
here.
digging a hole.
No,
Trying to
I'm
make it
just
easy
explaining.
for you.
I'm just explaining to you here. I'm just explaining. So, at the end of the course, all AAGD residents, as well as any dentists that want to be trained in sedations, get issued this certificate when they complete the course, right? So then, when we talk about years after years, those ages, they go out into the world, to the other 50 states in the United States, obtain the sedation license without any issue. I understand this might be the first time the Nevada bar sees something like this, as well as see something from Minnesota. So I understand your concern. I'm just trying here to help clarify any questions you might have, and submit any additional document that you would want to hear from me. Because I submitted my application 2 months ago, and not until like a week or 2 ago when I get email for additional documents. And at that time, it's really tough to try to get all of that stuff to you guys. And my program director just yesterday emailed you her own letter.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is now needed for?
Well, I would like, if I can get with the person who was overseeing the program you took or the training you got through Nellis, and they can submit that.
So what it is that they need to submit to you, ma'am?
Just that their course is...
The course synopsis.
Right, and that it's a minimum of 60 hours of didactic in the administration of moderate sedation.
Right. It say on here. It say on this particular certificate.
Can she keep that?
Yeah, I made a copy just for you guys.
So is it possible to have a vote? Like,
You could
after verification?
prove
So
the,
you're not
right,
ready?
you could, yeah.
Is Dr. Moore, after future?
Right, you could do it that you're approving the permit pending submission of whatever, and then once that's submitted and I forward it to Dr. Moore and he's satisfied with it, then you could issue him the temporary permit. You okay with that, Dr. Moore?
Absolutely.
So you're saying
It
you
does
are...
say he did 60 hours.
I'm sorry.
No, so we're gonna vote, but the vote will be pending your verification, and he's gonna verify on what information they're gonna look
And quite
up. So you don't have to
honestly-
wait for the next board meeting.
Because the next
Yeah,
board
and-
meeting's not until
Because
September.
he says other people can
So
take
Dr. Moore has,
this
they
way.
have a
If
committee,
anybody
a
wants to
moderate
take-
sedation committee
They can take it. and
with him
approve
and other, not just us, other moderate sedation dentists. So they're gonna look at everything, we're just gonna vote on it, and then you're gonna just be in contact with Dr. Moore and Ms. Schaefer about any other
So
additional information.
what are you guys voting today?
They're
We're-
voting to approve your permit pending
Additional information.
verification from Dr. Clark regarding this.
Well, and
And the
we're gonna
synopsis.
modify your application, most likely,
That-
to just apply from this program and not the Minnesota program.
Okay.
You understand that?
And the reason being is because if other people take this course, it's approved, so they don't have to worry. And then, because we're unclear about the Minnesota one, we don't want to approve that one, because if somebody else comes through and we still don't know what the course is, it becomes problematic. So you're basically, this is the certification we're accepting for you upon verification.
Okay.
So move, Sanders?
I'll second
Any discussion?
And my question to you is, so University of Minnesota, there are at least 20-something residents graduate from that program every single year. We all went through the same training, the same sedations and everything, and it took us at least 3 years to get it all done. And they obtained their sedation license from either in Minnesota or in other state without any issue. Then what is it about Nevada that future applicants like myself would have problem with?
Make sure that the 20 cases they do, keep the general anesthesia out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just make sure that the 20 cases is just like the 10 you did, just make sure it's 20. Because what confuses us is when the oral surgeon came in and administered those medications, it may have changed it from moderate to general. And ours is exclusive, that it has to be exclusive to moderate. Or deep sedation or whatever, because that's not the permit you're trying to obtain here. You're trying to obtain the moderate. So I would just make sure that in the future, maybe go back and let them know that, it's got to be 20 hours and it has to be exclusive to moderate. Don't, add any.
And a clarification that you have those 60 hours before the sedations are started. The didactic is completed. That's what we have with the other programs that we've already accepted. So if you want us to approve the program, then have the program provide us with the curriculum and how those hours are divided up, rather than your transcripts that are not clear, and then show that you've had the 60 hours of didactic and then the 20 cases of supervised conscious sedation. That's what we're that's what our regs require. So we're not asking anything different from Minnesota than any other state. And don't be surprised that some states have different requirements.
Oh, no, I completely get it.
That's the key point, you know, it's just different state.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the quality of education or capabilities or anything.
Right. It's just we have to adhere to our statutes and regs, so. And quite honestly, I think at the end, they should issue something like this.
Yeah.
And spells it out.
Yeah, makes it easier.
Makes it easier.
Well, because they don't issue their certificate for sedation because their residency is not sedation's residency. That residency is in a dentistry discipline.
But they're just giving you, this says just a certificate of training.
Oh, because that's from NEL, that's different.
Right, I know, but if they issued something at the end, and there's.
You know, and I don't make no decision, it's coming from the dean.
But I'll give you a very simple example. Dental students graduating these days, they take nitrous oxide training. Everyone is given a certificate in nitrous oxide training that says this is compliant with the instructions from the ADA about training in nitrous oxide. That makes it really easy. So if they go to Utah and Utah says you have to prove training in nitrous oxide, they have the certificate and they go bink and they're good. So if your program was really smart, they can do whatever they want, but they issue that certificate saying it complies with the ADA training, then I think nobody would ever question it particularly.
Right.
So let me clarify. So from Dr. Clark, you need a synopsis of the sedation course at Nellis. Am I understand that correctly?
Oh.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Dr. Clark is the one over this training program.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. And then to help future applicants from Minnesota to apply for your sedations, you need a syllabus from the sedation course, from the model sedation course. Am I saying that correctly?
It needs to follow the regulations that we sent you.
Right.
Okay.
And then just stick with moderate sedation medications.
That's
correct.
But I'm talking about pertaining to me.
And even though you can't use propofol for moderate sedation, there's some literature about that.
Right.
Keep the propofol out of it because that's not a manufacturer's guidance with propofol.
So, pertaining to me, you want a syllabus from moderate sedation course, or no?
Pertaining to you,
Yes.
we're trying to use
The Nellis.
The Nellis course.
for your license.
So all I need to do is, I'm going to give you my business card, and then you can give that to Dr. Clark and ask him to call me, and then I'll tell him what he needs to send. Once we receive it, I'll forward it to Dr. Moore. If he's satisfied, your license is approved pending that information. Once we receive it and Dr. Moore says it's good, then we'll issue you the permit, and you don't have to come back around.
Although we have to vote, but yes.
Right, right.
Yeah, I'm not the only guy that has the same.
There's like 13 as a board members. There's the sedation, so he's just the head of it. Okay, so we had any discussions from Doctor? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to item G, approval of anesthesia permanent permit, NAC 631.2233, general anesthesia. We'll take them A through C.
All three of those candidates have turned in all of their applications. Everything seems to be in order.
Okay.
As far as the committee's concerned, those are good to go for temp permits.
So do you have a motion? Yeah.
And then
Second?
once.
Second, Sam.
Any discussion?
My husband's teacher. I met you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I don't have it right.
Any opposed?
Might help expedite things.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. Number 2, moderate sedation, patients 13 years of age and older, on Dr. Aaron Oska. Doctor?
You have to
Oh, I
present.
thought you said Oska.
Dr. Oska, yeah, but I'm asking you, didn't he?
I don't have anything for Dr. Oska, sorry.
Okay, so you have a motion to,
Oh, you didn't review
Am I
anything?
looking
Did you
at-
review
Am I
the
looking
other-
at number 2?
Yes. Yeah.
On mine, it's been before, sorry.
we're going to.
We're on G.
G. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Mm-hmm, it's all right.
Yes, no, sorry.
Mhm.
I've reviewed, can I, actually, if I can make a general statement?
Mhm.
I've reviewed 2H, 1, 2, and 3, but I've reviewed 2, and I don't have any further comment or paperwork. Everything seems to be in order, and I make a motion to accept that
Okay,
permit.
for Dr. Oska.
Yes, for Dr.
Okay.
Oska, sorry.
Okay,
I
so-
was looking down the page and
Do we have a second?
Second, Masani.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Now we're moving to H, approval of anesthesia temporary permit, NAC 631.2254. General anesthesia, we'll take them as one, A through C. Dr. Moore?
well, I'd like to make a motion that we grant those temporary permits. The paperwork is in order.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Going to item 2, H2, moderate sedation, patients 13 years of age and older. We'll take them as 1, A and B. Dr. Moore?
Same as number 1. All the paperwork is in order. I'd like to make a motion that we grant them a temporary permit.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And we're gonna go to item H3, moderate sedation, pediatric specialty, Dr. Purcell.
I'd like to make a motion that we grant Dr. Purcell his temporary permit also.
Second?
The second.
Masani.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Now we're going to item H, approval for a 90-day extension of anesthesia permit, NAC 631.2254, subsection 2, moderate sedation, pediatric specialty, Dr. Ingersoll.
Dr. Moore here, I'd like to make a motion that we grant Dr. Ingersoll an extension for his permit.
Second?
The second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Excuse me, Ms. Schaller, why is there an extension?
Sometimes, so the permits are good for 90 days, and then under the regulation, they can ask for an extension. More than likely, it's a timing issue for us, that because we have to go out and evaluate them while they hold that temporary, for them to get the permanent, we may have had a scheduling conflict and haven't gotten around to the evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to item J, approval of non-dental board.
Table.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, motion, right.
So that was any discussion, okay? And then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, we're going to item J. We're gonna table it.
Table it to the end.
We're tabling it, they said.
To the end of the, after,
Okay.
yeah, to the end of this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so we're
Yeah,
just
let's do
tabling to
that.
the end of the meeting?
Yeah.
So we're going to item J, approval of non-dental board member to.
Oh, that's the one we're tabling, right?
Right.
Yeah. The-
Okay, we're tabling J.
Until the end of the meeting.
Okay. Okay, we're going to K. Approval of infection control inspector, NRS 631.190, Dr. Patrick France. Motion to, do we have a motion?
Yes, he's good to go, just so you know. His application is good to go.
Second?
No, that was, I didn't do a motion, I was just.
Second, Shannon.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, so the legislative session update.
So, our lobbyist, Mr. McDonald, was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he's ill. So I just want to kind of give you an overview of some of the bills that will directly affect our board. So the first one is SB 366, which has been enacted to include dental therapists. So, currently I'm working on getting the application, and then the board will have to develop regulations to outline certain provisions for dental therapists. So we will be working on that within probably the next 6 to 8 weeks. We'll have all those ready. Under the statute, they can begin applying if they meet the requirements. So, and those.
But we haven't determined what the requirements are.
The statute
requires.
requires. The statute, so the legislature determined that. There was SB 130, which was going to require radiology licenses to dentists, dental hygienists, and dental assistants, and they were exempt from that, so it no longer affects them. AB 319 now allows a person to petition the board to determine whether the person's criminal history would disqualify that person from obtaining a license. And so they can make that petition, and then you render your decision, and then within 90 days we have to notify the person petitioning whether their criminal history would disqualify the person from obtaining a license. We may have one coming forward because in it, they can ask for this prior to even attending like dental school or dental hygiene school. So, so that was enacted. Changes to the ethics statute for public officers and public employees. That one I just know about. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is unless you know, Sophia. AB 70 we just discussed on the agenda and you tabled it. And then SB 409, so the Sunset Committee currently can audit boards and commissions. It was every 10 years and now it's been changed to every 8 years. And then there's additional reporting requirements from our agency to report certain information to them. So that's that in a review. So
that's the update?
That is the update.
Okay. So tell me where I can, and I'm just asking, maybe I can't say it now, maybe I'm supposed to say it like later on, I don't know. But I would like to present to the board for us to create a committee of public health, and we can put it on the next agenda for September. And the reason why I would like to create a committee of public health is to better understand everything that's going through legislation right now that we're going to have a handle on sooner than later. And then in that vote, when we talk about it at the next meeting, to create a committee of public health to ask the board to look at Terry Chandler, Dr. Capero, Dr. Talley, sorry, Miss Beth Charter, and then one board hygienist and one board dentist. So I'd like to propose that to the board to create, to help us better with the language that we're going to have to create moving forward.
Okay.
So do I have a motion?
No, you don't.
No motion, just
Oh,
move on to
move on.
6. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Resource groups, legislative and dental practice. Dr. Pinther, anything to report?
No report.
Legal and disciplinary action, Dr. Pisani, anything to report?
No report.
Examination liaisons, Dr. Blasco and Ms. Pate are not here. They had no report that I know of. ADEX representative, Dr. Sanders.
Just to let you know, I'll be attending on the 9th of August, and so we'll be here 9th and 10th of August, the ADEX annual session in Chicago. So I will have more of a report hopefully in the next board meeting.
Continuing education, Dr. Champagne.
No report.
Committee of Dental Hygiene, nothing to report. Anesthesia, Dr. Moore.
Nothing new.
Infection control. This report is from Ms. Sadler who, regarding the Organization for Safety, Asepsis and Prevention, OSAP Boot Camp, and CDC guidelines that she attended in May.
Yes, first I want to just thank the board for allowing me to go to the session. It was not the boot camp, by the way, that I attended, it was the annual conference. The boot camp is just kind of a condensed version of the annual conference. It was very exciting to hear world-renowned speakers regarding infection control. A lot of the speakers included epidemiologists, practicing dentists from major universities from the United States, specializing in all areas of infection control, a nurse practitioner who founded the School of Medical Global Health, a dental hygienist from HIV Dent at the HIV/AIDS Oral Healthcare Resource Center, environmental health and safety professors, occupational health and safety directors, public health emergency management coordinators, a medical officer with the CDC. His name was Captain Ryan Fagans. He's with the Division of Healthcare Quality Promotion and leads the U.S. training team for healthcare, infection prevention and control when there are outbreaks of infectious disease in the United States and around the world. And also an actively practicing dentist from Georgia. He's the director of the Oral Health Center of Brady's Infectious Disease Program and chief of dental medicine for Brady Health System. His name is Dr. David Resnick. I spoke with Ms. Cagle and she interviewed with Dr. Sanders about the possibility of having a continuing course or having Dr. Resnick possibly come to speak to the board regarding HIV with all the changes of law regarding the disease. There was a lot of old information regarding dentistry and infection control, things like staff and patient safety, medical histories and medications, personal protection equipment, of course, and the big, thing was, making sure that we have really good infection control in our offices and make sure we take it seriously. I think the biggest takeaway for dentistry right now, as far as the CDC goes and for our offices, is we are now seeing a big comeback of certain infectious diseases that had been totally eradicated in the United States. But there are also contagious diseases that have made their way here that haven't ever been here before, such as HIV and Ebola, and they've been here a long time now, but they are still epidemic proportions. What they found is that due to the influx of illegal immigrants into the United States, certain fully eradicated diseases have now found their way back here. But one of the concerns for the United States right now is the measles epidemic. Part of the spread of this disease is also due to our own citizens not being vaccinated or immune or not having their children vaccinated. When they come in contact with the disease, it is very, very contagious. We had measles eradicated fully in the United States from 2000 to 2009. In 2010, the first new cases began to appear from Africa, Central America, and the Pacific into the U.S. There have been several thousand cases now documented since 2017. We had vaccines in the 1960s because almost all kids were affected by the time they were age 15. The other disease that the CDC is now worried about is smallpox. It was eradicated in the late 1800s, early 1900s in the US, and it is now showing up in Africa. So I was thinking that one of the questions, and this is an OSAP recommendation, is that dental offices add to their medical history forms and immediately a check-in at the front desk is to ask patients have they traveled outside of the U.S. in the past 30 days. The reason being is measles is spread through the nasopharynx mucosa. Through sneezing and coughing, it is very easily spread as it lingers in the air up to 2 hours. 90% of people who come in contact with the measles virus who have not been vaccinated or immune will become infected. If a person breathes in the contaminated air or touches an infected surface, then touches their ears, nose, mouth, they will become infected. Just since April 11th of this year, we've had, and this was as of 2 weeks ago, 555 new cases of measles reported by the CDC. When the first cases were come to the CDC in around 2010 or 11, there were only 8 states that had the measles showing up. We're now up to 24 in the lower 48. So half of our states are now have measles again. You know, good thing to remember is to make sure that we wear the Class 2 FDA-approved masks. The other concern regarding measles is air quality in dental offices. Most offices are true warm, which increases the incubation period for diseases. So Dr. Fagan, he is the specialist in air quality for the CDC as well. And he was discussing also should air safety be something the state should monitor in our dental offices. So that's a question I have for the board. NIOSH, which is the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, is not OSHA, but is created by OSHA. They're concerned with air quality. They conduct and fund research for occupational safety, make recommendations to OSHA, provide technical assistance in healthcare environments, train occupational safety and health professionals. They have found many respiratory hazards in dentistry through infectious agents, bloodborne pathogens, particles, dust, fumes, mist, gas, vapors, radiation, and other hazards such as our dental materials. They have found that IPF, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or interstitial lung disease is one of the many lung diseases associated with infectious respiratory diseases in dentistry, especially with, kind of like myself, the older generation where we didn't practice with gloves, masks, PPE. So we have probably had more exposure, but just because of the common things that are in dental offices, even with PPE, there's still a lot of risk and exposure for personnel. Most patients are dentists, hygienist assistants, and our dental lab technicians. So I just thought if there's some way that we could come up with a reduction of exposure in the dental offices, to reduce the lung diseases amongst dental care personnel. That's what I had gotten from the main OSAP meeting.
All right, any questions, any concerns?
The next meeting will be in Minneapolis, May 28th through May 31st, 2020.
Can you repeat that?
The next OSAP meeting is in Minneapolis, and it's May 28th through May 31st. If anybody's interested in the boot camp, that's January 27th through the 29th in Chicago.
Thank you. Budget and Finance Committee, Dr. Sanders?
No report. We're still attempting to schedule our meeting.
Public comment?
Oh, wait.
Nope.
We have to go back to the other items. Number the.
I was so close.
So close. But they could, if they want. Yeah.
Order.
Because,
Unless they want to make public
Right.
comment.
Yeah, you just have to do public comment again before you close, but if he wants to make his public comment now.
Do you want to make your public comment now? We're good?
You don't want to stay?
Okay, he's gonna do it now.
Hurts our feelings.
All right,
It's
thank,
not that I don't want to stay.
right,
Lunchtime.
it's lunchtime.
So, in the past, when you've had big issues and you're making regulations for big issues, you've had work groups.
We are.
And so, my request to this board would be that we have a work group on regulations that are made on SB 366, because I think there's a lot of concern from the Dental Association and from the Hygiene Association on how those regulations are going to be done and what they are.
Correct, so we're gonna have all the regulations, because we're revamping ours, and then we have anything else. So that's what we're trying to get together. We're trying to get a quorum for our Legislative and
Right.
Dental Practice Act Committee.
So, but even in the past, like when you did anesthesia, you had a separate work group that included others from, that were not from the board, that were on that work group to give input.
Right,
That's what I'm asking for.
right.
A work group.
But
made
then
up
I have
of-
to, then
made
that
up
will
of-
hold it off, because I can't get them on till September 13th.
I think it's important. I think it's important that you have input from the Dental Association and from the Hygiene Association on those regulations and their intent.
So
Just-
what I
just
might
a
do.
request,
Okay,
just
that's
my
okay.
request.
What we could do is always move forward with the other ones, approve a committee for that particular item, and then those will come at the end.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other further public comments? Thank you. Up north?
None.
Okay.
Clarification then, on forming that committee, that's not part of the board. You're saying that you'd like to have, is there a time constraint that you want to try to have the formal committee meet and that subcommittee group? You're saying you can't get
Work
them
group.
together fast enough, is that
So if we add, well, first we don't know who's
going to be on this committee?
who wants to be added to the committee. So, but I have to notice that, and you guys have to approve it. So the earliest we could do that is the 13th. Which then, by the time you start with the rulemaking, we're getting towards, and I want to get as much done. So what I could do is have the Legislative and Dental Practice, they can meet about other things other than the dental therapists, and then we could add them to the committee when it comes to their issue, and then they can participate in it.
I was just wondering if there was can we do a quick call just about that committee or something that would help you, on a more stringent timeline?
Yeah, I mean, we could post,
If that would help.
I just don't know who's interested in being on the committee.
No, we have to, Dr. Talley, when you suggest a committee, like a
workshop or something?
Well, we have the Legislative and Dental Practice Act Committee, which are the ones to make the rulemaking.
Yeah, those are the board
So you want to
members.
be able to add, those are the board members.
Right.
So now Dr. Talley's asked to add additional
A committee.
people to that, like a subcommittee, or add them to that committee even, for this purpose. And, but that needs to be, I need to know who needs to be added, so I can publicly notice it, and then
Understood.
you have to vote.
How can we as a board help you get that information? Because I hear an urgency in your voice. How
Well, it's just, everybody's doing their rulemaking, and I just don't want to be at the back end and our
Okay.
stuff, So, I would just need names of, so obviously Dr. Talley wants to be on it.
Yeah, I think.
I would say the names that we have just, when I had asked to create a committee of public health, so I would ask.
But no, because this is specific, this isn't the public health people. Who was the hygienist that was big behind it?
Annette Lancet.
Hold on, just real quick, we're in public comment, so.
Oh, sorry, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. We're in public comments, sorry, Kim.
So we'll just have, for right now, we'll just have Dr.
So we'll
Talley.
just move on.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah,
I'll
we're just
figure it
moving
out,
on.
yeah.
Okay.
Just let me know.
Thank you, Dr. Talley.
Thank you.
All right.
Can we take a short break?
We have to take a short break for Miss Melanie, our lawyer, please. That last page.
One paragraph.
Consideration of stipulation agreement contingent upon the insurance of licensed
Issuance of the license.
Issuance of a license to practice dentistry for Dr. Wasif. And then we're gonna go to page 1, and we're gonna start filling in the blanks.
Right, so the stipulation that Dr. Wasif has, wishes to present to you, is included in the back of the book, containing all of Dr. Wasif's information and documentation. And it's, the only thing at this point that we could not determine, because it should be left to the board, is what kind of stipulation this is. Is this going to be monitoring? Is it going to be probation? So that's where the blanks are. And also, I mean, obviously, we'd hope that you look over the entirety of the stipulation, and, you know, any questions or concerns that you have, we can contend with.
Can we vote on monitoring?
Is that your motion?
Yes.
Well,
So you said monitor, or you said
monitoring, supervision, probation. I think that the hang-up was between monitoring and probation, because supervision's kind of neither here nor there. So I think we're looking at one.
Monitoring has either reporting or observational visiting. Probation just means he goes to work and we see if we get any complaints about him. Is that not right?
Opposite.
Probation is considered an adverse action.
Okay.
So it's reportable to the National Practitioner's Database.
No.
Monitoring is not a reportable action.
I go for monitoring.
monitoring.
Frequency, monthly?
So we've addressed the monitoring in paragraph. So 11E. Okay, so what this stipulation, we've addressed the monitoring in paragraph E, and that what it will consist of is that he's authorizing our executive director to pull his PMP report. And to the extent that there are patients on there that up to 5 will be selected randomly, and then he will send us those records, and we will have a member of the board or one of our investigators review those records to determine that everything is correct.
What's the blank for in section E?
During the monitoring period. It's going to say either monitoring or probation, but if so during the monitoring period. Right.
Okay.
And so that's part of the monitoring, is that it will be, a random audit of his charts every month. And then the other thing is he has agreed to random drug testing.
Right.
And that is probably about once a month. We'll send him a note that says you have 8 hours to get to Quest, and he goes to Quest, and then we get those reports. He's also agreed to give us access to his personal medical records should there be any issues of concern with that.
Schedule 4 hours of continuing education.
Continuing education.
Are we going to take each section at a time and work through this? Or do you want to do it all as a?
It's entirely up to the board. What?
Well, the first question I think you proposed was, are we going to call it a monitoring or probation?
Correct.
And so, for my clarification, probation can be reported to the National Practitioner Database.
Correct.
All right. So he has a long list of those that are already reported. From a board standpoint, and really legal and protection for the board. Is there any reason from that standpoint, because of its history, that we need to call it one or the other?
No, it's your
It
call.
has no bearing.
It's
no-
what the board feels is appropriate for the protection of the public. And regardless of whether or not it's an event that's reportable to the data bank, the stipulation is public by pursuant to our statutes. So it is a public record. So that takes care of any concern that
And the information you're collecting, whether it's monitor or probation, it's the same
It's the
for us.
same,
It's
right.
just, one is reportable, one is not.
So one reportable, one not. If it's unreportable, you can go to Utah and reapply.
Oh, no. No. When we say reportable, we mean to the National Practitioner Data Bank.
Well, I assume that.
That's what I'm saying. Say he fell off the boat and not, and his license got revoked again, and we gave him the non-reportable type. Then he can go to.
No, because you've taken action against him, so he has to report.
Isn't that reportable?
The revocation is reportable, and this is public. The fact that this stipulation is public, the only question is whether or not it gets reported to the data bank, which frankly is not public. The data bank is not a public entity. It is for insurance companies and credentialing
Hospitals.
boards and licensing boards and hospitals and things like that. It is not accessible to the general public.
And to further answer your question, Dr. Lee, even if you put him on monitoring, if he wants to go apply in Utah, he has to disclose this agreement. Otherwise, he's submitting a false application.
Right. And then the other issue is that the way the stipulation is written, the terms of the stipulation do not change depending upon whether you call it monitoring or probation. What he needs to do and what our monitoring of him is going to be is exactly the same. This is a semantic discussion.
And plus, it says prior to the issuance of the license. So Dr. Wassef's been out of practice for 2 years, so he has to first take clinical. Prior to the, number 11A, prior to the issuance of the license in Nevada, Dr. Wassef agrees to successfully, at his expense, complete or pass either a skills assessment provided by a dental program, or successfully completes a clinical, and it would be up to him. Whatever he wants to do.
Am I allowed to say anything? Okay. I think, again, Ms. Chapman, you can help clarify if I'm not being clear. Those fill in the blanks, they're all fill in the blanks with the same word.
Correct.
Right.
They're not like every section we have a different word. From my perspective, I can just explain to the board the difference in the semantics, how it has an effect on the licensee's life, really. For example, like as Ms. Chapman said, it doesn't negate the efficacy of this agreement whether we use either word, regardless of which word we use. The board has still full authority. There is no loss in that term. Here's where it really can help give me a start, a fresh start, is realistically, on any type of a PPO application, as we all know, one of the first questions they ask you on a PPO application is your license currently on probation? And if that's a check yes, that's pretty much a death sentence as far as getting on a PPO application.
Exactly.
So then, part of my terms and agreement in this stipulation agreement is that I have to maintain employment. So I think it would put me in a very compromising situation if my employer can't get me on a PPO plan. I think he might choose to hire somebody else and say, you know, why shouldn't we hire this guy if we can't get him on a PPO plan? Applying for a CDS certificate, I believe they ask you those questions as well. When I reapply for my DEA license, they ask you that question: is your license on probation? And also, I think, Ms. Chapman, you said that stipulation agreement, according to the statutes currently in the state of Nevada, is that it's on my record permanently. it's not going away. So if that word probation gets put on, then 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, that word probation is there, and I have to explain that over and over and over again. So I would humbly request that we use a more benign word, if at all possible. And the efficacy of the agreement maintains its legitimacy, it doesn't lose anything. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Okay, so, going back to the agenda.
Did they do a motion? No,
Mhm.
we haven't done anything yet. Okay, wait, you have a question?
I do,
Okay.
because I want to make sure that we cover all of our bases.
Okay.
Are we going to, as a team, go through the entire stipulation and fill in the blanks as we go? Is that our purpose?
That's up to you. That's up to the board if they.
That's what Dr. Moore wants to do, let's do it, let's
No,
go.
I'm just saying that
Let's do it.
there's some blanks in here.
They're all the same blank. The blanks are whether or not it was going to say monitoring
Sorry.
period or probationary period.
Okay. Has everybody read and are they comfortable with everything in the document with the exception of the blanks? And the blanks will all be filled except for B and C at 11. All right.
No, so B would say, let's assume for a
Shall.
moment, shall be monitored as opposed to shall be on probation.
Right.
And then hereinafter monitoring period or probationary period. And then C would be prior to completion of the monitoring period. The monitoring period may be told.
All right, so I was confused on B, so B and C would be the same, those would be all monitoring, as an example.
Correct, if that's what the board votes on,
Right.
yes.
So now we're at the top of page 3, right, Dr. Moore?
No, I've read through it, I have,
I think all the blanks is one word, same word there. Right?
yeah.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so we're gonna.
I have a question on G, page 5.
G?
G,
Yes.
page 5.
Yep. During
The drug testing part?
It says during the
Monitoring period.
period, it appears to require a pair request, etc. Are we going to predetermine like so many? I know we can't give them the day and the time, but Quest works on 2 ways, right? You can call and try to get an appointment, which is hard to do within 8 hours.
Yes.
Otherwise you're there all day, right?
Yes.
So maybe we do.
He has a form that he has to present to them.
Yeah, and they'll get them in.
They do?
And they'll get them in.
Yeah.
Okay, so he can override the whole, like the normal.
Yeah, 'cause-
Normal?
yeah,
All right.
yeah, we have the whole panel, so everybody's tested the same.
Awesome. And then, so do we, so do we have a schedule, like it's gonna be so many times during the thing?
No.
We don't?
So what we normally do is, we'll do them more randomly, and if they're doing well, then it sporadically goes, you get so you're successful, we wanna make sure you're successful.
Of course.
And then if they're showing yes compliance, then you might see where if you're getting it once a month, you might go 6 weeks, but then I could go back to 3 weeks, so you never know, but we don't have like, oh, we have to do 12 or anything like that.
Okay. Do we have prior cases that if it comes to question that we tested them too much or too little, that we have something to fall back on and say, well, this
It's
is what we've
confidential.
done?
The testing is confidential.
No, the number of tests, I'm talking about the number of tests.
It's on a case-by-case basis, because.
I mean, if you want to put in there, what I can do.
A minimum of.
Or a maximum of, that, the board will will require these random tests a maximum of twice a month or something like
How
that.
about maximum, but maybe at least a minimum, right?
Well,
That's what I went.
Yeah.
a
You might be
minimum?
one to forget about it, and then a year passes.
Okay, I mean, we can,
So at least it meets like a certain, like,
so
X
the
amount.
reason I say that is because if we do minimum once a month, then there's never going to be
No, no,
the.
minimum total.
Total, you're saying, yeah, he's saying for the, during the monitoring period, he'll have a minimum of X amount of tests done during that month. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I mean,
Do we have a legal precedence that we're gearing that off of, or can it just be completely
this
court
is a
arbitrary?
stipulation,
He's-
so
he's
he's
agreeing.
agreeing.
Each stip's different.
Each stip is different based on what the agreements were and what the situation was and what the concerns are, and so each stipulation is different, and I can
Well,
honestly
we've already
say that I'm.
addressed that Arizona, we kind of felt like wasn't really fair.
Right.
And I just want to, for the record, say that if we're going to do this, let's be fair.
Absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
Are we being fair?
And do we have?
Being fair.
And do we
Thank you.
have, and do we have
Being
any other
fair.
states or any other thing to back up what we're doing? That's what I'm concerned about.
We don't need another state, this is
I know.
you guys to
But you
to
hear
make.
what I'm saying.
I fully understand and I definitely appreciate that.
So what would be the minimum?
And
Well, what, first of all, we're,
I can honestly say that I don't have a precedent for this particular case. I have never seen this particular situation. So, and I mean, I haven't been with the board for that long, but in 17 years, is there another situation that would be akin to this? I don't think so.
well, so if I'm reading this correctly, Part B, he's going to be monitored 1 year, but then in section C, line 3, it says
2
that
years.
2 years.
Right, so the
In-
reason for that is, that is a little bit confusing, but the reason for that is because we want the monitoring to be for a full year. But to the extent his license is issued or this stipulation is approved, and then he has to get his clinical, and then he might take a time to be employed and, and things like that. So if there's a situation where he's not, during the first year of the stipulation, where he's not able to be monitored because he's not practicing yet, we give 2 years to complete the 1 year monitoring. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're going to have a start date of some point.
So the start date
that
will-
starts the clock of 1 year.
The start date will be when the stipulation is approved. Or it might be when he's
No,
issued his
actually-
license, sorry.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
when,
yeah.
when he's issued his license,
But we're not going to issue the license until he's.
Done the skills assessment
Yeah.
or the clinical.
Yeah,
Yep,
right.
correct.
Yep.
Right, so from issuance date, he
Correct.
has a year.
A year,
Correct.
right.
Yep.
But that gives him time to move, it gives him time to find employment.
You didn't already buy a house up here, Matt?
You're not living here?
Pardon?
You're not living here yet in Nevada?
No,
Oh.
I'm
You
still
didn't know
in
if you can get
Nevada.
licensed.
I didn't know I
Oh.
was.
No, I think it's a year from the date
Yeah,
that he starts working,
Yeah. Really. Well,
not from when he gets licensed.
Well, the way the stip is worded, it is from when he gets licensed, but that's why we give him the extra time to
Right.
make those right. Because we don't want this stip to be ongoing forever.
Right.
We want it to have a start and an end date.
Right.
Sorry, so back to G.
G, okay?
Okay, yes.
When you say the reports are submitted to the executive director, remain confidential, what does that really mean, and how does she report to the board for a
I don't
potential
report.
board decision? Well, I assume that if everything's cooking along and it's fine, there's really no report to get, right? I mean, everything's there, he's satisfying the.
So right, so if anybody from the public called and said, I found out Dr. Wassef has a stipulation agreement, is he compliant with that?
Yes.
You know, if he
Yes.
is, the
Right.
answer is yes. As of today, he is.
Right.
If the drug test shows,
Abuse.
something in there,
Yeah.
it's reviewed by a dentist. If the dentist says, yeah,
Is that part of our DSO thing?
yes. Anytime it comes to any kind of clinical determination, it goes to a licensed dentist or a DSO. I'm not making those decisions. But if the results come back and everything's negative, well,
So the
then.
confidential part is only to the public?
Yeah, correct.
Not to the board or the board or the DSO that's doing the review?
Correct. It's to the public.
Right, it's to the public. Now the issue is that if it's something that
Coming
is-
to you as a board, I have to notice it
it has to be
publicly.
noticed on the public record.
So I, as a board member, I can't call you and check on him?
You can call me and ask me, just like anybody else, is Dr. Wassef compliant with the terms and conditions of the SIP?
But I'm coming from a public standpoint, right? As a person of the public, not as a board member. In other words, my question to you, according to G, is it sounds like any of this material here is going to be reported to you. You will know the details.
So what, if you read on, so it remains confidential, okay, because these are his medical records.
Right. Yes.
Okay, so we are going to try and respect that. But if you read on in the paragraph, it says, in the event of a violation in the form of a confirmed positive test result, all reports previously submitted shall be available for review and use by the board in connection with any subsequent. So it does take into account that if there's an issue.
Right.
Right, right.
And that wasn't my, I'm sorry, I should have made my question clearer. My question was who was it confidential during the monitoring period? And so it sounds like it's not confidential to obviously the executive director and only to one DSO. Is that correct?
The DSO.
Who is going to know that information? That's what I want to know.
Melanie.
I'll know it.
I'll know it.
So
Dr. Wassef will know it.
And if there's a positive, everybody will know it.
No, I get that. I get that. All right.
So it's just, we're not, what it means is we're not going to put on our website, today Dr. Wassef is going for his urinalysis, it's.
But Dr. Moore, are you having a concern that it's stating the executive director and you want it to say something different?
I just want for the record
Right, I understand.
what that means. So it seemed, I read it and I was like, well, I know that's not correct. I know that there's going to be some people that are going to know that. But I read it as she's the only person that's privy to that information.
Well, no.
And so, and either I'm right or I'm wrong, I don't know. Do you have a comment on that?
No.
So
I don't know.
But she's only, she's the one privy to it because she's the one that's going to be letting him know that it's time for his test.
I'm preparing the order
and then
form.
as she's going to prepare the order form, and then the results are going to come into the board.
So is Dr. Moore saying because then you know then the stipulation is not written? Is that what you're saying? You wouldn't have known.
I don't know.
I don't know if
how
I'll
to
know.
write those.
I mean, I may or may not know. It's.
Well, anybody in this office could possibly know. We work here. It's not confidential from us. We work here.
Oh, I know.
The question is, if the question is you're uncomfortable with me having this information, I've had it for 17 years I've been doing this.
No, I got scolded about what I thought was public information. And so when I read things that say that they're confidential.
Because these are
Well, that's
his
because his
medical
health
records.
is
These are his health
right,
records.
right.
Well, I get that, but.
So he's agreeing that Deb will be the one that has access to this information. That's what he's agreeing to.
And I have no.
Now, if a positive comes up,
right,
and it's something that shows up,
Right.
obviously I'll go to Melanie.
That's the
We'll
next-
have it reviewed,
Yeah.
And then he'll be notified that
And a
this has
DSO
happened?
And a DSO will look
Yes.
at it.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
But-
And
then
we'll
it
get
may
his
eventually-
medical records and.
And that's when he get, right, in the next, one of the paragraphs, then, okay,
It's
say it's a
age.
legitimate
Yeah.
prescription for a controlled substance.
Right.
Then he would say, oh no, I got that prescribed by my doctor. Okay, go to paragraph J, in the event, prior to submitting. So then he gives us access to his healthcare records,
Right.
so that I can corroborate that what he's saying is in fact true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that the hang up here is our negative results public record, and and they're not. I
No,
mean,
that-
so.
Did you want-
My
would
my
you-
question was not where
No,
where
he's-
it affects in the
he's
public.
saying
realm.
the-
I
he's saying the
completely
word.
understand that. I'm talking about here amongst us.
But see, that's where the disconnect is, because if it's here amongst us, it's public.
In this meeting, I understand that.
Right.
Which, and that's what I'm trying to define
Mhm.
in my own mind,
You
because
can't have a meeting with us that's not public, it violates the open meeting law.
Right.
that's
So
exactly,
you have to leave it to staff.
right, that's exactly what I'm saying, and
Until it violates anything in this stipulation, then it
Yeah.
becomes our domain.
right, I understand that. Yeah, that,
So therefore, you have to trust the ED.
yeah, no problem. My question is only the E.
Doesn't sound like you trust her.
Deb, how long have I known you?
Probably-
Almost since
Yeah,
she started.
15, yeah.
Almost since she started. I'm fine with Deb. Yeah.
Would
so
you want the
that's
wording
not-
to say executive director
I
and
just needed
legal
it-
counsel?
I just needed it clarified as to who was going to know. That's it. I think they've answered that.
You know, it's kind of like HIPAA regulations, right? That if it's within the course of doing work, then it's okay to be
Okay.
talking about protected information. But
Correct.
anybody who takes it outside of here and is
Correct.
gossiping about it
Correct.
outside, then that's a whole
Yeah.
Correct.
different. So the verbiage.
And we sign confidentiality agreements in our.
We work here,
Every-
yes.
Everybody who works here.
So the
Yeah.
verbiage says what it has to say for ease of reading and whatever, but it's understood, I guess. That's what-
Okay.
Any other issue?
So we need to come up with the minimum about what you said, the minimum of monitoring that you wanted?
Yeah, the minimum number of tests throughout the 12-month monitoring period.
Do you have a number, Ms. Chofie? Yeah. I mean, you work in the medical aspect of it.
I mean, I guess I would say 8, because as you get further into the process and there's no reason to be questioning, then it would be dropping off. So I think to say 8 would be.
I would argue for 6, because we have 5 years of urinalysis records from him that are absolutely clean. That's very different than somebody who all of a sudden just got caught this week or last week, and we need to be a little more strict. But that 5 years is pretty good in my book.
So if you say then, you know, just as an example, then for the first 3 months, you're doing it monthly and you're not seeing anything, and then you extend it and extend it and extend it, then 6.
Yeah.
So it'd be a
Because that's a minimum.
A minimum of
Right.
6, if we happen to do 7. But.
That's
yeah,
fine. That's a minimum. Do 7 or 8, that's fine.
Right, yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Anything on page 6? Page 7? So we're just filling in the blank during the monitoring period, blah, 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 consistent with the blank, blank terms? Blank terms and then blank
Consistent with the
period.
monitoring terms, monitoring period, and monitoring activity. Oh, I didn't take out monitoring.
Right.
You're clairvoyant.
Yeah, I was. So yes, so it's the same that we charge all of our licensees for the monitoring is $50 an hour.
Okay. Page 8.
boilerplate stuff.
9. 10.
I believe so. Let me read. What paragraph is it? M, G, and G. Yeah, shall be responsible for all costs. Just so you know, Dr. Walsif, with Quest, because we're a board, they're not gonna require payment the day you go there. They bill us, and then I send you an invoice attached with the bill that we received, and then you would reimburse us that way.
So it looks like the board members have filled in all the terms that they need to, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So before you vote, since this is considered a stipulation, that means Dr. Wasif agrees. Do you agree to all the terms that the
Yes.
board just filled in right now? Okay.
Absolutely.
And another question is, do you have a copy, right, of this stipulation without, with the blanks?
Yes,
Is that
I
correct?
do. I have
Okay.
a copy of
So
it.
if you look on page
I don't
7
have it
oh.
with me in front of me. I have it on my computer.
Which means you've reviewed it?
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
so I'm just gonna ask you a real quick question.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if you look on page 7, that's for you. So you waive, so you know you have certain rights. So you waive all those rights,
Yes, I do.
including having this looked at by independent counsel of your choice.
Yes.
Pretty much, you knowingly and voluntarily, nobody's putting pressure on you, coercing you into?
coercion, no.
Okay, so just making sure, and then you, as you said, you agree to the terms?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then the board wants to vote?
Okay. So, we're going back to E.
Yeah, we're still on E.
Okay, so we're going to, the consideration of stipulation agreement contingent upon the issuance of the license to practice dentistry in the state of Nevada for Dr. Wasif. Do we have a motion?
Motion more.
Second?
Wait, make sure.
I make a motion that we consider accept the stipulation agreement.
As the board
As
has.
the board has discussed and filled in the blanks to monitoring.
Okay. And then what I will do is, oh, go ahead.
We need a second.
Second?
Second, Sanders.
Any discussion?
Yes, so what I will do is I will fill in these blanks and then, I'm sorry? Well, no, you do discussion and then.
Stop it. Any discussion?
So what I'm saying is I will go in, I will fill in these blanks, Dr. Wasif will sign it, and then it will be given to the chair to execute if this motion passes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. All right, next one.
I think I'd rather have a root canal.
Right? I think I'd rather have an extraction under moderate sedation.
I'm doing dental society.